Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony, creative fourth year, also known as Dr. Finance. You're on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. Want to find out more information about this program or myself, go to drfinance.info. We have a very special guest today. We have Carlin Hines. Carlin Hines here is a music producer, beat maker, and also a major YouTuber and social media guy. So many other things. So we're not going to ask him about his money today. Not yet. Welcome, Carlin. How are you, sir?
Man, I'm living life. I really can't complain. I have no excuses to complain, and I'm just feeling good. It's a good day. Today's Wednesday, August the 2nd, so I'm feeling good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, today's a beautiful day. So, Carlin, just wanted to start out as customary. We'll do a quick 30-second snapshot if you want to just tell the audience about like who you are in a quick bio, short bio, and then we're going to get into your story. We're going to spend more time delving into your story. Carlin's also from the Philadelphia area, so we got that in common as well. And then we'll get into, I got about 20 or 25 questions or so for you afterwards. So Carlin, to get started, maybe just about a quick 30 seconds, just tell us a quick summary of yourself. Thank you.
Oh, for sure. I'm Carlin Hines, or Carlin Game Hines. People call me Game, from busyworksbeats.com. We've trained over 900,000 producers around the world. Some have gone to work with Drake, Kanye West, Post Malone, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, Lil Baby, Polo G, Trippie Redd, J.Cole, a lot of other Billboard charting artists. And it's just great to see everybody flourish. But the main thing is, after training those folks, I learned in my mom's extra bedroom, this program called FL Studio. I wrote down my dream literally on a piece of paper like this. And then 48 hours after, I started implementing that dream. And ever since, I started learning from mentors like Frank Kern, Dan Kennedy, Jeff Walker, Jay Abraham, Brian Tracy, to get my mind right. And then I took that concept and that inner desire that I had for music, and I figured out how to build a business around that. So now I'm working with, even on the creative agency type stuff. I had a mentor, his name was Chris Moyer. He was an entertainment lawyer for about 30 years or so. And he introduced me to Web3 and all these like higher level deal things. So I was working with billion-dollar companies called Near Protocol. We did deals with them. I even worked with Razer Music, which is a gaming laptop company. I did that deal myself, though. Just working with these billion-dollar corporations showed me that I can bring something unique to these companies, which is just creative agency. I didn't know the term, but basically content and marketing to spark new life in their products. So that's kind of what I do behind the scenes. But in the forefront, I train music producers online. So that's, I think that's 30 seconds out of. We'll see on the review.
It's a hard task to do. You did a great job. So thank you, Carlin. I appreciate it. So Carlin, yeah, we're going to get into your story now. If you want to tell us a little about yourself. So let's start from the beginning. Where are you originally from? And maybe tell us about the first 10 years.
Oh yeah, first 10 years of my life. Okay, so I was born in Westchester Hospital, but raised in Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Back then, it was known for like drugs and crime, and then they cleaned it up over time. So I never really had a chance to go outside. As a kid,
Westchester, Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, the hospital.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Chester County Hospital in Westchester, and then grew up in Coatesville. But in Coatesville, it was just a lot of bad stuff outside, basically. And I grew up in the city of Coatesville. And so I had to detach myself from the city life and kind of learn how to build friends on the outskirts. Not the country, but like in between country and city, like the in between suburb type area. So I made a lot of friends as a kid. Looking back, I didn't realize how much affinity I had for music. My mom was in choir, so I got to sit and watch all of her little choir, what are they called? Like things where they pop up at choir. I forget what they're called. They're shows or whatever. I learned a lot of musical skill from that. Even as a kid, looking back, my mom would turn on the hip hop station, Power 99, it's called in Philly. And I would, as a 4-year-old, I would tell her to change the radio because I was tired of hip hop and I wanted to listen to the jazz station. So my ear I didn't know all these things were like in me. I just remember as a kid, my mom was turning left at Route 82, it's called. And then I just heard the blinker go bing, 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 bing. But in my head, it turned the bing, bing into a whole song. It was like, for the 30 seconds that she was at that stop sign, my brain created this entire song out of that small little metronome. Bing, bing. It was the craziest thing. I didn't know as a kid, but that was my brain using its creative faculties to create music, which is what I'm, I guess, built to do. My grandmother was a masterful piano player. She could play organ, piano. I'm not a masterful musician yet, but I think I definitely got some of her DNA. This keyboard right here, she could tear this thing apart. But my mom lost her mother when she was 18 to breast cancer. So I didn't really get to grow up around my grandmother per se. So my mom took that singing, the affinity for music, brought me around the choir. And when you hear gospel music and church music, it's probably the highest level of musicianship next to jazz. Their brain works differently. When they're creating music to pray, to praise God and like really deliver love through music, it's a whole different skill set. It's just different. And they introduce you to all these chords you don't know, all these styles and freestyling and all this. So, gaining all that experience, I guess, as a kid is what led me to going to college. Because the short story is my grandfather went to World War II, was it? And he was in France. So he was stationed in France as a medic. And so he came back and kind of, his life changed. But he was telling my mom, it kind of influencing my mom to get into healthcare. So all of my aunts and my mom basically got into healthcare. So my mom got into healthcare, veteran hospital, I want to say, and they all kind of did similar things because my grandfather wanted to be a doctor. He just couldn't at that time. He was a medic. And then that led to his children wanting to get in healthcare. And then I too inherited my mom's desire for healthcare. And she would push that I go to school for pre-med and medicine and all this type of stuff. Because I had a cousin ask me when I was in 7th grade, he put the pressure on me. He's like, what do you want to do? And I was in the back of a car and I was just like, you know what? I want to be a doctor, I guess. I thought that was the just run in the mill thing that I had to do. So my mom pushed me in that direction. So I went to college. I went to Villanova University, which is on the main line outside of Philadelphia, and studied pre-med and biology. And then what was it? Sophomore year, I discovered entrepreneurship because I created what's called the pre-med club. And I took the club from 0 members to the first year with my roommate, 100 members. And then the next year we doubled that to 200 members. So I had this, once I learned about entrepreneurship by accident, I had no idea what it was called because I wanted to go to school for pre-med, but also neurology. I wanted to be a neurologist because I thought I wanted to study in human behavior. I didn't know that was called marketing, applied psychology. I didn't know these terms at the time. And so I thought I had to be a neurologist because I wanted to study why people thought stuff and why they acted a certain way. But in reality, that's called marketing and entrepreneurship. So I kind of stumbled across it sophomore year by accident because we had that need. Were you in college? Did you rush a fraternity?
Was I in a fraternity? Yeah, I was in Sigma Chi. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a Philly guy like yourself, but I went to school down in GW in Washington, DC.
Oh, okay.
So that was my first time out of the city.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because that energy you get to rush the frats and go like interview basically for the fraternities. We had
Oh
the same.
yeah, yeah. You have to go and interview every brother in the fraternity before you get. I think you're called pledging or something. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, just even before we even get into the frat, like we
Right.
were just trying to get on their radar. So
Uh-huh.
we wanted to create our own fraternity. It was called TKE, but they had a history of like cocaine or something on campus, and we couldn't create the fraternity. So we had all this energy to build something and didn't know where to put it. So we were like, okay, let's build a pre-med club. And then that's when I learned entrepreneurship, having a team of executives and delegating and just really focus. Because I didn't understand at this time was when you have a team, you really have to make sure that your intent gets executed. Because at a certain time, there's power struggles and teams doing whatever they want to do, and it messes up that pure intent. And I just remember praying. I was just like, please give me the strength to deal with this because I just want good for my people, but they're being manipulated and used. And I didn't like it. I just remember having that feeling. And long story short, I was kind of the guy behind the guy. There was another guy who kind of stood up in front of people, but in reality, I was creating the actual club behind the scenes. So that showed me that I can be egoless, not have to be the front man all the time, and still execute an idea and still learn how to grow and do all those other stuff. I had doctors flying in, no money, no incentives, no nothing, cold calling. Like,
Wow.
it just taught me so much. And really it came down to do you have the balls to stand in front of 150 people who are way smarter than you? And the answer was yes. You know, you got to be humble. You just got to be like, everybody in this crowd is way smarter than me. You're all going to go to med school and get 4.0s. I'm not in this case. But I'm going to try to help you guys get to your goals. And once I learned that I'm basically just a catalyst, that's why I had so much energy behind my mission. When I was 20, I worked for Goodwill in Exton. You're familiar with Exton, PA?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to Vanguard in Malvern. Worked there right after out of college for 3 years. So that's
Wow.
very wealthy area.
Yeah, you told me the Vanguard's like one of, if not the richest company in the world.
When I worked there, they were the richest, wealthiest company in the world. And right now, I think they're second to BlackRock. But yeah, I mean, between both of them, they own like
Wow.
most of the world's assets.
Just running. It's 50%, 50%. They own one half of the world each.
Probably more.
And probably more. No, and you know, going to that Goodwill in Exton taught me a lot too, because when I was 20, I had a spiritual revelation, I call it, where I went to bed one night and I was just kind of seeking my like calling, people call it, and my purpose. Because you said you were going to mention purpose. And I was 20 listening to this preacher. His name was Mike Murdoch. He was famous for being on like BET and like the black channels at the time. But that's all we had. I didn't know who to study. So I just looked him up on YouTube. His name was Mike Murdoch. And he had a video called How to Find Your Assignment or something like that. And so at the end of his video, he had a call to action. And the call to action was tonight, you know, pray for your assignment. And he went through this prayer. And that same exact night, I remember this, I just went to sleep and then had this whole revelation, I call it. It's more than a dream. It was so real that it made this reality feel fake, if that makes sense. Like wherever I was more real than this reality.
Hmm.
And without going into the details of the revelation, I basically learned three things. And the first was show love. The second thing was be filled with the spirit of truth. And then the third thing was to complete my assignment. Now, my assignment specifically is to give Bibles. And that's why I wrote a book called Produce a Bible. And I tried to ship out Bibles. I tried to buy Bibles and ship them out. That gets very costly very quickly. It costs about $15 on average to ship out a Bible worldwide. So I didn't, you know, running a business and trying to ship out Bibles, I can try to put money aside, but it's a little difficult with the family now. Fiance, shout out to my fiance, Day upstairs, Danny, and our beautiful child, Leah. I want to thank her because when you see a woman go through childbirth, it just changes everything about you. It just makes me go as a man. I just go, I have no excuses. So it recentered me on my assignment. And long story short,
Carlin,
yeah,
just to interject real quick, 'cause there was a
yeah.
lot of stuff here. So you're still doing the Bible thing? You sell?
It's costly. So I'm like, okay, I still want to do it, but how do I do it without always needing to buy a Bible and send it to somebody? So I said, let me give lessons from the parables of the Bible. And that's where the podcast came from. And then in the book, it's called Produce a Bible. I wrote a free book, but in the book, it goes through like, kind of like your book, how it has one topic at the top and then you explain. Basically what I did was I took the parables from the Bible and then I rewrote it to be more modern and like of today's time for a music producer or somebody in business, for example. So that was my way of giving Bibles without needing to physically buy a Bible. Because my goal is to give 100 million Bibles a year. That costs $1.5 billion and I'm not a billionaire. So I was like, okay, you know, I have to give Bibles some type of way. How do I reach and do up my assignment without physically needing to buy that Bible? That's my way of trying to do it, at least in my heart. But I'm sure there's gonna be a
And to get
financial way.
back, the other point that you were making, so you created the med club in college, right? There was a pre-med club. You didn't do the fraternity thing. You skipped that and just went straight to creating a pre-med club. Is that right?
Right, right. And it just taught me so much. Would you like to know more about it? Or
Yeah, and curious though, what I know you had the med background, but you weren't going to college for med, were you? Uh, to create
yeah,
this? Or?
I was on track to go to med school and everything. Took
Oh,
the
okay.
MCAT. Didn't do as well on the MCAT. And I was like, I faced a point where I said, do I really want to spend 4 more years studying for a test? And I had to ask myself that hard question. I didn't have time. I was 22 or so. And I said, I can't be 26 trying to get into medical school. It's like my life will pass me by. So my back was against the wall. And that's where I had the reality of student loans came in. Cause if I'm not going to get into med school right now, student loans are due now. You can't push them off. And long story short, my back was against the wall, and I just did what I already was doing, which I had a YouTube teaching people music production tips. And I said, let me just put all my energy into this channel. And that was the moment when the channel went from here to like into the stratosphere. It's just putting all of my energy into one thing and just having that back against the wall moment. I'm sure you had a back against the wall moment too.
Oh, I still have them.
Right.
Yeah, I've had plenty of them. But yeah, so Carlin, you graduated from LaSalle University. Is that right?
I went to Villanova
Oh,
University.
Villanova. I'm sorry. You graduated
Mhm.
from Villanova University, and then you decided to not go to medical school, to go, and that's when you really started shifting into the YouTube thing.
Yeah, it's just I just have so much empathy for kids trying to navigate through that space because there's so many variables that we don't control in that whole process. Even people who seek jobs, like there's so many variables involved. I just have empathy for you guys.
Wow. So, wow. So, Carl, I just want to back up a little bit. We bounced a lot on your story. I didn't realize that about you either. I mean, going to um, Villanova University is coming from anywhere in Philadelphia. Villanova is one of the top schools in the country. Very expensive school, very prestigious school. Um, has very popular. It's got so many pluses to it. So I commend you on that, man, because that's not easy. It's a hard
Thank you.
school.
And at
And
the time, my dumb high school self, I didn't know much about Villanova and the history. I just thought it was a Catholic school down the street. And it was in my first school. I actually had a full ride to Robert Morris, and I applied and got interviewed for Harvard and Princeton.
wow.
Didn't get in, but I got interviewed at least.
Okay.
But I didn't even know about Villanova until I went there, and then I said, "Oh, this is like a top school for sports." I got a scholarship for science, and they did a housing scholarship as well. So I didn't even know about the whole sports thing and the fanfare around Jay Wright, the coach, and all this. I had no idea until I got into that world. It's very different.
I
Uh,
actually, I think I applied to it too. I definitely went to a tour when I was looking for schools. We're both locals, so and we have a global audience here. So I got to paint the picture for everyone. Villanova is close to Philadelphia, so I went there. It's such a beautiful campus, um, but in my own path, wound up going somewhere else. I actually, it's a funny story. When I tried to put down applications for different places to go, all these very fancy beach places, Hawaii and Florida. I put it
yeah,
on like a list, applied to like 10 of those, and my dad's like, "Nice try."
yeah, trying to go on vacation for 4 years. Yeah, even DC, you went to the power source. That they really run this whole
Yeah, and
country.
just like you, I had no idea how important it was until I was pretty much there. But in both of our cases, they both were very great schools. So what was your let's step back to the first 10 years. So it was struggling, and I want to talk about that because I always like to paint the picture that what you see is not what what originally happened. Like it's not always this easy just to show up magically. Carlin Hines in modern version, like you went through a whole series of issues, especially being in Philadelphia, and I'm sure you went through a lot of stuff. So what was like the first 10 years coming out of so Coatesville? I don't really know Coatesville too well. Where is that in reference to, let's say, Center City, Philadelphia? Is that right
Yeah,
outside or?
Coatesville's about an hour west. So it's that weird place of not country, but also not city, but it's city people moving to the suburbs. So you get the city mentality, but in the suburb type area.
That's on the way to, oh, okay, I do know Coatesville. It's on the way to Lancaster. It's like 20, 30 minutes out.
Right. They were known for their steel mill. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of that steel got, into the guns they were shooting all the time. Um, and also I forgot. See, I went on tangents. 1 to 10. Okay, 1 to 10. I grew up also around a famous NBA player who won a championship. His name is Richard Hamilton. He even named the city Rip City. The city Coatesville is also known as Rip City. And so he always would give back to the city and have these festivals every year and just give back, have entertainment, education, car giveaways, all types of stuff. And I saw that young. My mother was dating his father at the time, and I got to see the life of an NBA star go from high school all the way through college, all the way to the NBA pros. And it just gave me a mentality to where I didn't have to accept the run in the mill story. I didn't grow up around my father. So having some kind of guideline about what life is, I learned from somebody who's seen the highest levels of at least money. So it taught me a lot about what happens when people get money, how family members just become your best friends when you get money. I've seen a lot. But I got to ride in his Bentley, for example, and I got to see his Maybach up close. His first car was a Mercedes Benz, and it had like a champagne type color. And funny enough, my first car was a Mercedes Benz CLS 500, and it was the same champagne color. And once I realized, oh, I'm reliving what I saw, because I thought that's what I saw. That's so.
He became
Just
like
talking
your
about
first mentor then, I guess, right?
really indirectly,
Indirectly, yeah.
I'll say like inspiration, so to speak. Just
Mhm.
seeing how life is for somebody who's literally a celebrity right away, like is, and then go to win the championship. And so he's really respected. Um, but just kind of being humble to realize I've seen the very poor in Coatesville. I've seen the ultra wealthy of Villanova. And, just seeing both sides makes me really respect humanity. I think
Mhm.
people tend to neglect what makes people actually move. Like what makes us human is that we have bodies and we have emotions. So if we don't express emotions and we're never addressing the physical, we're not being our human self. So I think people need to embrace being human. Like we just had a full moon recently. What was it called?
I
It's like a
was,
special moon, like a super
yeah.
moon.
Yeah, and it's weird. I saw it. Uh, my aunt actually mentioned to me. I didn't know that there's a certain name, and I could be wrong. I didn't look this up, but uh, there's a certain name when the moon's a certain position where it looks like a face, and that's what we had recently. Yeah, if you look at it, like last night, you could have saw it. I don't know about tonight, but it looked like two eyes and some kind of
Oh,
mouth or something.
is that where
Yeah,
is that where that emoji came from then? Wow. I didn't even know. I just
I didn't
saw
know
the
that either, and until she pointed it out, and I'm like, oh yeah, how about that?
yeah,
It's
and it's
the
like,
certain angle of the moon on a certain side, I guess.
wow. And also being human is say to surrender to things that control you that you can't control. I think
Mm,
that also humbles people to realize like that's what childbirth showed me, not to go past the 10-year mark, but as an anecdote is watching a woman give birth and me sitting there going, I can't help her. She's in pain. I can't resolve the pain and I can't help her. And I have to watch it. All those things combined made me just surrender. I said, I can't do anything. And I felt helpless in a good way to surrender and be humble to say, whatever the universe wants or God, whatever people believe in, just I have to surrender to its will because I literally cannot control anything. And I think that is part of the human experience that is neglected too, is to just say we don't control everything and we don't have to control everything. So I know I'm going esoteric, but I just,
No, that's a brilliant point, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up because so we met on Clubhouse, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I know that you being in the certain rooms that you were from the beginning, you also have this other side. You already mentioned you listen to Brian Tracy and Jay Abraham. How did you get into that self-help world? Like, what was your first introduction to these folks? Like maybe it was Brian Tracy. I don't know. Like you listened to an
sure.
audio tape 20 years ago. I don't know. What was your
Question.
first like eye opener to that?
I think if I traced it all the way back to the progenitor, maybe I got inspired to just make money because I thought money was just this magical thing that would change in my life. And later I found out after the millions, it doesn't do much, but you don't know until you do it. So I think in the beginning, my inspiration was to just become a millionaire by, let's say 30, I think or 25, I think was my goal. And then I found out a book, I think Robert Allen is his name, who wrote
Robert
about
G.
the
Allen,
million. Say it again.
multiple streams of income. Robert G. Allen.
Yeah, G.
Yeah, I
Allen.
interviewed him here on the show.
Oh, dope.
It's so
See, you
funny.
got
He
something.
actually sent me an email this morning.
Wow. Speaking of, right?
Yeah.
So you have so many, your catalog is so thick. I got to sit and just play all of them in a row.
Oh, he's
17.
got a great interview. Definitely check it out. So it's about 2.5 hours or so. He gets into, he actually had the first like top real estate book. It was called No Money Down. And
Wow.
that's what catapulted him. And then eventually, made multiple streams of income. And he did some books with Mark Victor Hansen, who Chicken Soup for the Soul guy.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
I'm sorry. Interrupting.
So two stars combined and it's exploded into a bigger star. Yeah, so it started with his books, I remember, in the early stages, and then moved into Jeff Walker, who had this book called Launch. And this is the first time I learned about internet marketing. I was into affiliate marketing. I sold jewelry online. I've been into other industries before music production. And I did the blog thing and tried to hack my way through it. But the book was launched by Jeff Walker. And then from Jeff Walker, I learned about Frank Kern, and he's funny and he's a great teacher. Now, Frank Kern learned from Dan Kennedy. So I learned about Dan Kennedy from Frank Kern. And then from there, Brendan Burchard, Brian Tracy's of the world. I learned Jay Abraham was the mentor of a lot of those folks. And then once my mission became, how do I find the person who inspired the person? Because once you get to information, you're like, okay, who created this information? I want to go to the source. And then you find the source going back. So that's kind of like where it started. Frank Kern's the main one. I remember I keep telling my students and people who study me and stuff, I say, like, a lot of people have questions. And I say, I didn't ask my mentor any questions. The only 6 words I said to him were, thank you, you changed my life. 6 words. That's all I said to Frank Kern. I never asked him, hey, what are your thoughts on internet marketing? I studied and tried to find every piece of information, every book, every video he was in, everything online. And I found a seminar called MMF it was like Millionaire Marketing Formulas, I think it was called, with Frank Kern and Brendan Burchard. And that was the video that I sat down and I watched it on loop for like a week. My mom thought I was brainwashing myself, which I was. And then I got so inspired from that video that I took a piece of white paper and I wrote down my dream. And in the next 48 hours, I was implementing my dream, and nothing's ever been the same ever since. That's why I always have to thank Frank Kern, because he was such a huge pivot in my entire life that whether he wants to take credit or not, I'm going to give him credit. And there were tons of mentors ever since, but there's a billion people I could shout out. But those are the main ones.
Thank you, Carlin. And just to add, the self-help world, other than Think and Grow Rich, I really didn't know much about it until really Clubhouse. And it just happened that as I'm interviewing these folks, I seem to be recording the stories of the origins of this self-help movement. Most of them come from Napoleon Hill, his book Think and Grow Rich. And if you've studied Napoleon Hill, all his descendants really started creating a lot of the folks that we know today. So, for example, Earl Nightingale, and then there was the Dennis Waitley crew, and that generation. And then, like Brendan Burchard, modern generation, Tony Robbins, whose mentor was Jim Rohn, who's friends with Dennis Waitley, right? So all these folks were following the lineage from Napoleon Hill. Is Napoleon Hill, is he deserving of all the credit? No. He learned from 500, supposedly 500 of the richest people in America at that time, or the world, including Andrew Carnegie. So really all this information has been recycled down and expanded on, going back in history, but it's really the past 100 years that the movement really began. So every one of them learned, to go on your point, from someone else who learned from someone else, learned from someone else. And it just created this, but they would add their own twist to it. Like Brian Tracy adds his own twist, especially with his book. What is it about the frog, right? Like it's about time, one of the best time management books ever. So he adds that time management element. So, and then you got Robert G. Allen, who added the real estate element to it, and the streams of income element. So you're now, and so am I, even though we don't want to be, or maybe we do, I don't know. But regardless of what our opinion is, we are now disciples of that. We have learned from them, and the knowledge just keeps getting passed down. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah, even Brendan Bouchard, I think he's a reincarnation of Jim Rohn. He has to be. It was so scary when I found out who Jim Rohn was. I'm like, this is Brendan Bouchard. Holy crap. And yeah, it's Jay Abraham's name is ironic too, because Abraham in the Bible, I think it's Abraham. Somebody said he'll have more sons than the stars in the sky, meaning he'll be the seed of all the rest of the progeny. Same with Jay Abraham. It's like, how many people has he influenced? Millions and millions. So it's ironically a great name, a great
Yeah,
last
Tony
name.
Robbins, Damon John. I mean, the list just goes on and on.
Yeah, it's just, and then from those avatars, I'll call it, we tend to resonate with the stories that match up. And then that's what pulls us into the greater message. So it's like the greater message, avatars, and then it pulls all these people in. That's why it's so important for people to be putting their message out there as content creators, social media, video creators, whatever, because it might be that person's story that brings somebody in the fold, and then they can train them on the higher principles. And, that's kind of the mystery of life, is how to create your niche and then take it up a notch. That's a phrase. Create a niche and take it up a notch. Write that down, somebody. That's
Yeah,
good.
write it down. We'll make it a chapter title here.
Yeah, I like that.
All right, so
Listen,
Carlin, so we pretty much got your story, but let's just zoom in on some parts. So you went to high school in Coatesville, is that right? Before you went
yes,
to Villanova?
yes, and
W- w-
ironically, it's
Yeah.
sorry.
Did you? So what were your entrepreneurial type? Like, did you have a lot of jobs growing up? Paper boy, all that stuff. And if so, do you want to share any of that?
Sure, I guess familially, my grandmother um she had retired, so she had to keep her mind occupied. So she had something called Daisy Day, where she would literally create from scratch for Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, or Philadelphia, I mean. She created an event to raise money for children.
Oh, your grandma worked for CHOP?
She was like a volunteer, I
Oh,
guess.
okay.
But
Wow.
she was an entrepreneur in the sense that she created and pulled all these people together to create this massive day where everybody just celebrated whatever it was, and they gave money to a good cause. So she taught me how to read early. She was very pivotal. I didn't know what entrepreneurship was. I didn't have family that was really into business, but she taught me the foundation. and and then, I didn't have a bunch of jobs. I worked at Sears, I worked at Kohl's, I got fired after like 2 days, quit. Where else did I work? Um, Worked in college, and then Goodwill. I really didn't have a lot of jobs like that. Um, but just seeing that NBA star was the thing that taught me to remove myself from the typical thinking, the status quo. I think that was the most pivotal subconscious training that I had, is just seeing that imagery of
You guys
somebody.
were really good friends, I guess. Y-
Yeah, I mean, my mom dated his father, so I literally saw all the behind the scenes stuff.
Wow.
The deals, the bad times, the good times, the agent stealing money, the family asking for a ton of money. Like, I saw all the behind the scenes stuff, and it was very interesting. I just remember walking into his mansion, his first mansion in Maryland. I think it's called Silver Springs, Maryland.
Hmm.
And I just never saw a house where every room had a bathroom. I know that sounds basic now, but when I was coming up, it was one bathroom per 2 rooms, 3 rooms. Every room had its own bathroom and had a base. It was so much space. I just never saw that before. So all this stuff was critical in the way that I developed my expectations.
Are you guys still friends?
If he saw me, but I don't have his direct number and all that type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, but I saw him at a high school celebration for like athletes, and then he showed up to the event. I have a picture of it somewhere floating around. But yeah, he recognized me. He's like, he just, it's one thing where it's weird. We never talked, but he has so much respect for me. It's the weirdest thing ever.
Mhm. So that's brilliant. So we talked about your path. Like before we get to the college part, I just want to clarify: is there any stories you would like to share pre-college? Maybe some struggles that you had that you overcame, and you'd like to just share the lessons with the audience of how to overcome, especially these days with COVID. There's a lot of people struggling with a lot of different things. Um, what lessons would you say you've learned starting from scratch and building yourself up, like pre-college, that
Yeah.
can be useful to the general audience?
I guess at that time, I didn't focus on homework because I just felt like it was wasting my time. Ultimately, all the kids have that in the back of their head. They're like, why am I doing this? This is not adding to my life. So I think that learning Python recently, which is a coding language, I realized that people learn the best when they feel like they're moving towards a desired outcome. So my desired outcome is, how do I create tech for AI and music in the music space? Okay, so I'm learning this with a purpose. So I want to learn. I'm like, what haven't I learned? And that curiosity pulls me towards where I'm trying to go. But if I'm not curious about something, it's very hard for me to put energy into it. So that was the main thing. But also for kids who were kind of struggling, maybe watching this, I had a lot of anxiety because I didn't understand like my morning routine. I should have gotten up, drank 2 bottles of water. Okay. And then like flush your system, take your shower, whatever, clean your system before you go to school. Okay. And that will clear up a lot of anxiety. But I didn't know that. I'm rushing to school, woke up 1 minute before school, and it just was a chaotic experience for 6 years. Bad stomach in class, not a good thing to have when you're trying to take a test and your just stomach's all over the place. Um, so that's the one main thing. But because of that experience, the lesson that I took was that it was training me to not feel like I'm a part of the group. I know that sounds crazy, but I was in something called the gifted program where they separate kids out, almost like trying to figure out who is a threat to the system, so to speak. And I'm sure they recruit a lot of Masonic folks from that too, but they took me and put me to the side. So I always felt like I wasn't a part of the group. Even though I was in the group, I felt like I wasn't a part of the group. So all these reinforcing things taught me that I have to do the opposite of what everybody else does. And these are all the underlying pieces to lead to entrepreneurship in this case, where I felt like in order to stand out, I literally cannot do what everybody else is doing. So how do I serve everybody? And by serving everybody, I'm the opposite of everybody because now I'm serving them. So that's how I created that good polarity in my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant, Carlin. Appreciate you, man. So you're doing great. So then we get into the college years. Any last thoughts on college? Like, did you have jobs? Did you wind up getting that scholarship to Villanova?
Yeah,
You
it
said-
was a science scholarship, and they also paid for my housing, so that was
Wow.
really good. Um, so I worked in the cafeterias. So I'll give like the kids who are watching little tips. If you work in the cafeteria areas or the delis, you can become a swiper, it's called, at least when I was at college. So it allows you to study while you're working. So you could have your books to the side, and then when people come up to check out, you just swipe real quick. And because you have people watching you study, you actually study more because you're trying to look smart in front of people. And so that pressure adds something to the ingredients. I remember too in college sophomore year, I lived on a floor where there was girls and guys coming down the hallway, and it was the most fit I've ever been in my entire life because I knew that in order to go to the showers, you would have to walk all the way down the hallway to go to the bathroom. So at any point in time, you could run into girls coming down the hallway. So I had to be my most fit. So that's when I had top tier abs, top tier, like everything. I would run every day. It was most fit I've ever been in my life, which taught me that pressure is good for accountability, and accountability is the pressure that you need to stay top at whatever you're doing. So when you're coaching and have your masterminds, that's what it's adding, is that pressure, that somebody observing you, and then you have that pressure to actually perform instead of being your own parent. Imagine a kid parenting themselves. They're just going to eat Cheetos, chocolate chip cookies all day, and break the Xbox. But if they have a parent around, they're not going to go crazy because somebody's watching. So when we feel like somebody's watching, that's when we start to act more proper, I should say. That's my theory, at least. I don't know if that's scientific or not.
No, that makes a tremendous amount of sense. And actually, it's the same thing with when your back's against the wall, struggling, right? When you're struggling, you got that pressure you're talking about. Especially if your life's on the line. Like if you don't have enough money for the bills, you better find something out, or you're not going to eat or drink or have lights. And if you got kids, neither will they. So
Hard. That's
yeah,
pressure.
pressure is good sometimes.
Yeah.
So post college, All right, let's get into the YouTube story. So right after college, your whole plan was to become something in the medical field, whether it was a medical doctor. That's why you went to Villanova, but something changed and you realized that it wasn't your calling per se. There was something else calling you. College is over. You're still in your mom's house. You're probably struggling like I was after college. Like, all right, I have no money, right? What am I going to do? So what was your story from that point on? Because you became a YouTube superstar among so many other stuff. How did that whole story unfold?
Great question. I think in 2013, I graduated, took the MCAT, got the results, and I said, this isn't the way. Because to study for that test, to give you a little context, I didn't spend the 4 years of college studying for that test, which I should have been. I spent the 4 years of college trying to survive and just pass. And when you have that mentality, you're not thinking about the future and tests. So by the time it was time to take that test, I didn't do so well. And I said, I would literally have to spend another 4 years just studying for one test. And that reality shocked me out of the dream of college, which is go to college. And right after college, you're going to have this job waiting for you. Now, I looked up jobs, and the first beginner level job says it needs 8 years of experience. And I'm going, how do I get 8 years of experience out of a 4-year college? How does that math work? So I just felt like I was bamboozled or misled a little bit when it came to the college dream and the job thing. So I had a lot of this shocking stuff all at once. I said the MCAT wasn't so good. Plus, I felt like I wasted 4 years in college. I did learn social cues and learn how to communicate and all this, and learned about a lot of stuff and chiseled my style and chiseled my language. But, I couldn't spend another 4 years. So long story short is you come out the MCAT, bad, and then you come out of college with no job. And I said, what have I been doing? So in senior year, I think it was sophomore year, I started a YouTube channel back in 2009. Actually, that was the start of college. And my goal was to help somebody in a small Facebook group because they would have problems. And the only way I could explain music production is a video. You can't really type out how to change a low pass filter and how to move a snare. It's just, you got to show them the video. And so I would record these videos, put them up on YouTube. Helping one person actually helped hundreds of people. And then you get that dopamine rush, like, wow, it just helped hundreds of people. Let me do this again. And you just keep doing it again and again and again. And I realized I'm helping more than that group. So from that point in time, my channel got monetized somewhere along the lines. I forget exactly when, but Google wouldn't pay out unless I had over $100. I remember that. And so in college, my point is, for 3 years, I had what's called a meal plan at Villanova. It was $2,000 a year, but it paid for all your meals for the entire year. My mom couldn't pay $2,000 every year. It just wasn't happening. So the senior year, I didn't have a meal plan. So I'm like, how am I going to eat? Literally, I had no job, or I had a job, but it was very minimal pay. I didn't have all this extra finance floating around, so extra money floating around. So luckily, YouTube was supplementing my income for my senior year in college. So I would get the check and then have money to buy groceries. And then they would pay you only until you pass a certain threshold. So you wouldn't get paid, but every 3 months or so.
What year did you graduate, Carl?
High school in 2009, but at college, 2013.
Oh, wow. So you did the YouTube channel right out of high school, and right out of college you were 2013. You're already 4 years deep into YouTube.
Yeah, I
I
think
didn't realize that. I thought you started right after college. Wow.
yeah, I was a user 2009, like watching videos and stuff. But
Yeah,
2013 is when I said, let me upload videos.
and start monetizing in
Yeah, make
2013.
it a channel. And
Wow.
so at that point, you gain traction over time. And then it was literally paying for my life. So I said, after college and after all these failed things, I'm like, what can I do? I said, what is already working? Oh, my YouTube channel is working. It's bringing in revenue. Let me just put all my energy into this and see where it goes from here. And then that's when my life changed dramatically, because my ultimate fear was how to pay student loans. I remember my first bill for a student loan was like $200 to $400, and I was just scared. I didn't know what to do because nobody was hiring me. It was just, I was overqualified for stuff. I was underqualified. It was just this limbo of life. And I just
And
doubled
then
down.
you got forbearance.
You said forbearance?
Yeah, forbearance. Number one tactic to not pay the student loans. Forbearance. hardship.
Yeah.
You can actually, yeah, so you can take claim either hardship, I believe, for like 5 years or something like that, or maybe more. And then when that's capped out, you can find reasons for what's called a forbearance if you really don't have the money, and that can go for a very long time. So little
Okay.
strategies. Yeah.
Hey, little tips in there, because I remember I pushed it off for 6 months one time, and I was
Uh-huh.
so scared to not use up my rest of the time. I was like, what am I going to do?
Oh, but don't get me wrong though, it's the interest is still accumulating unless it's I'm sorry, it's called a deferment. Deferment. The interest does not accumulate, I believe. Forbearance, they allow you not to make the payment, but the interest is still accumulating. So 100,000 can turn into, a lot more by the time you're ready to pay.
Jeez.
So it's just a strategy to get them off your back while you're figuring out your income situation.
Yeah, this once I grew, like, now I'm starting to understand how complex this world is set up.
Hmm.
At 32, I'm 32 now, and I'm just like, oh, this is how it's all set up. I'm really starting to see it for what it is, and I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but I mean, we live here, so I can't complain.
Yeah, so I'm sorry to interrupt you. So you came out, you started monetized in 2013, and I guess you just went full time with it, right?
Yeah, just all the way in. I think again, that back against the wall moment was the moment I realized that I'm really becoming an entrepreneur, where it's kill or be killed. Maybe that's dramatic. It's either, what is it, kill what you eat, or whatever the phrase is. You get what you kill. And I had to create results. And when you step into that mindset, it just changes everything about your reality, because you look at work, your employees, and you're like, why aren't you doing what I used to do in the beginning, which is grind out? It just shifts your mentality. Like, for people who always question me in my community specifically, I just say, when you live and die by this, your DNA is different. It just changes everything. You look at stuff differently, you perceive stuff differently. It's like when you read the Bible, for example, the first time as a beginner Christian, and you're just reading it literally. And then you read it later when you get some more wisdom and information, like, oh, this is symbolic analogies and metaphors and all this stuff. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a different word, not analogies, but um, somebody in the crowd knows. But the point is, you see it for the symbols, and then the third time you read it, you go, "Oh, this is talking about astrology, astrotheology." Then you get into higher levels. So every time you read the Bible, for example, you keep unlocking these levels. And the same thing with the entrepreneur mindset is you start to see stuff in a whole different way. Pardon me. So that's all I had to say. I'm not going to go on a diatribe or nothing, but
No, you're doing great, Carl. Carl, what was it like the first and how old were you at that time? If the first $100 you made as a YouTuber, what was the feeling? Was it something similar to like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, wow, this is possible.
man, that's a good question. I remember selling my first beat before I remember my first 100 from YouTube. I think because you see it slowly going up, and then you're just waiting for it to pass a certain threshold, and you're
Mm.
like, finally, give me my money, kind of thing. So you're almost angry at Google. Um, but God bless Google and everybody who's been helping me sustain income for a long time. But going back, wait, I lost the train of thought. What was just repeat the
Yeah.
question?
So first $100, what was your
Oh,
initial
first,
reaction and how old were you at that
my
time?
bad.
Or
Yeah.
what year was it?
I would say, I just remember sitting in my college dorm room. I want to say junior year, because I just remember exporting the Google AdSense after it reached that threshold. I'm going to say junior year to be safe. I don't remember, but I
Hmm.
do remember being in my mom's extra computer room and get my first beat sale in a private Facebook group. One of the owners of the Facebook group bought 2 of my beats for $24. I
Wow.
was beyond excited. It's the first time somebody validated that your thing's worth something, and pulled out hard-earned dollars to buy it. And then I remember I had to export the file, and then my computer just shut down. I'm just like, so as I'm exporting, not only did it stay stuck at 100%, it wouldn't like finalize. So it was like 99%, 100%. And it just stayed there for like an hour. And I had to turn off my computer. I almost lost the files. It was very dramatic. But that's when I learned too, every peak that I have in my life, usually in business, comes with an equal and opposite something. Like, either somebody's going to test you before some relationship stuff. There's going to be most likely something, I'll say negative, right before you have this super positive thing. I don't know what it is about the universe, but that's
Yeah, and
how.
the flip way to look at it is they're the challenges from a positive standpoint that we have to overcome, because there's a learning experience that we need to go through in order to get to that apex, to get to that top of the mountain. Like, we don't deserve to be at the top of that peak until we go through these challenges first, and then we deserve that point. And then setting us up for the next one and even higher. But there's more challenges. So at the end of every glass ceiling, there's a whole set of new obstacles to overcome. It's like, okay, when's this thing over? It's never over. That's the challenges of life, right?
Right. And I think Jay Abraham said this is like life is about the process. It's about the getting there. Because what's funny, I don't know if you've asked this to a lot of your folks, because I didn't go through every single video, but you might ask, hey, how did you feel after your first million or your first billion in sales? And they're like, it was almost anticlimactic, because by the time you get there, you're so beat down by all those challenges that it just neutralizes
The feeling.
any excitement at the top. So you would expect, so that's why when a lot of people are chasing $1 million and becoming a millionaire, people who actually had $1 million and earned $1 million and all that, once you have it, how do I explain this? It's not what people create in their mind, put it that way. They create almost this fantasy of like, money will just change my everything. And then they do things that compromise their integrity to go get the money because they didn't have it. But by the time they get it, they realize, oh, it's not what I thought it was. And they're like, why did I jeopardize jeopardize my integrity? So I don't know what the lesson is in that, but the point is, it's just a different thing before you get something versus after you get it. Like people, it's almost like, getting with like, we have a child. So clearly there was stuff going on, but I have a fiance. And like when you're getting with a woman, for example, it's almost like the anticipation beforehand is more important than the actual doing itness, if that makes sense. So the anticipation of life is the same exact way. People draw up all that emotion beforehand and then they take action. And that's a metaphor for marketing too, is we got to get people excited so that by the time they take action, the value is in the beforehand part, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
No, that was, again, esoteric as I'm pontificating with you here.
That's okay. So Carlin, it took about 2 years after college to really start to build an income where you can pay your bills, right? Give or take, would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely 2 to 3 years of just no parties, no like dropping friends that were just bad influences, grinding, focusing. That 2 to 3 year mark was pivotal. Like I had to sacrifice. There was no other option. Yeah, you're right. 2 to 3 years, I think it was.
And before college, you said from 09 to 13, you basically were just a YouTube user. But when in 2013, that's the beginning part where you got real serious, and like that became your goal, and you started making routine videos and stuff. So from the time you got really actual serious to YouTube, 2 to 3 years.
Right. There's something magical. I don't know what it is. Even I know when people get investments, they just plan for 3 years to lose money until I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the story of the Christ story where he rose up after 3 days. Maybe it's a metaphor in that. I don't know. It's something magical about that 3-year mark that I found. But yeah, from 2013 to I started getting real traction around 2015. That's when the business went from 600 a month on YouTube. And then I introduced products and services and all this. And then that's when it went from 600 to 6,000 when I had business products and everything else on top of the YouTube income. And that's when the business actually got like official.
Yeah. So what other? Oh, okay. So one other thing I want to talk about. So before you went 100% on your own for the Google monetization, you had mentioned in offline that you signed up for some kind of channel there before AdSense per se. There was these channels that you become part of this network, and they help you. And you did that for like 9 months or something. Can you talk about that experience and like what was the outcome of that? Do you think it was worth it? I don't even think it's relevant anymore, but it was part of the story at some point.
Yeah, thank you. Forgot about that part of the story. Yeah, it's called a multi-channel network, an MCN, and I was signed to a broadband TV through what's called Viso Catalyst. So I was promised on the phone. They got a guy on the phone. He's like, "Hey, Carlin, we're loving your channel. We're loving your growth." Because I did a remake of Jay-Z's Tom Ford instrumental. Now, without going into a whole essay, basically they approved it on YouTube to where it could be monetized, but then the money would go to Universal. It's called the music group at the top. There's 3 companies: Sony, Warner, Universal. So Universal took that revenue from the video, but it was getting millions and millions of views, 2 million plus views. After it got like 2 million something plus views, they came back and they gave my channel a strike. So they approved it, took the money, and then struck my channel. So I was like, this is interesting. But yeah, given with the multi-channel network, they don't do the work. Basically, he got me on the phone. He's like, "Hey, Busy Works Beats, you could work with Chief Keef, who was a very popular artist at the time in hip hop around the Chicago drill scene." And what's that? Oh, I thought you were pointing at. I thought you were telling me something.
Oh no, there was a piece of dust flying around. I was sorry.
You're like, that's
Sorry about that.
I mean, I thought
This is the Dr. Finance Live podcast. We got to make jokes a little bit, right?
You're right. You're like, don't tell that story. Don't tell it. No, but the MCN called me up and he's like, "Yeah, you can work with Chief Keef and all these artists and you can collab." So I'm thinking that I'm going to be given all these opportunities, almost like music placements, they call them, when you work with the major artists. So I said, okay, cool. So it was a lot of words in the air. That was my first lesson. Words in the air are not there. I learned that from a law firm I worked with. Words in the air are not there. So I had all these promises on the phone and I signed up. They took 20 to 30% of the revenue in exchange for giving me the tools I need to help me out. In reality, it was just a dashboard with a couple tools on like how to edit your thumbnail and a couple keyword tools. That was it. I mean, for the equivalent, I could have spent $75 a month if I would have known about other tools. And long story short, their revenue cut was about $100,000 after 4 years locked into that contract. I learned so much, lost a lot of wealth because of it, but I learned a lot.
I'm sorry. You say you were with them for 4 years?
I think it was a 4-year deal. I think 20,
Wow.
I believe so. Yeah. Because I think it was, yes, I think it's 4 years. It was a long deal. I couldn't get out either. I had to fulfill the deal because there was nuance where if I didn't email them at a certain time, I was locked in for another year. And I forgot to email them 1 year and then they locked me in. I'm just like, can you be human for a second and just let me go? You already took enough money.
Wait, so from like 2015 to 19, you had to give a part of your contract to them?
Yeah, so they were collecting the revenue from Google and then they would pay me. So if the week, if the month, I'm making this up, but if the month was 10,000, I would get 8,000 or 7,000. So I was earning way more than I was getting, and it got to a point where I got so demotivated, I just stopped. My enthusiasm went downhill, and you could actually see it in the actual graph of my results. Like you could visually see where I emotionally got frustrated, and then the chart goes down. On top of emotional relationships, dealing with, the women at the time. It's just all that stuff really does impact like finances so I'm like going through this thing where I'm responsible for so many people. And if my mental health and my emotions aren't right, it will affect all of the people that I'm responsible for. So I gained this other aspect of life to where I have to be careful who I keep around me because they can literally destroy whether they know it or not. And that became a big thing for me. Like when I was dating, I said, so that I'm not going to go into essays about that, but that's, if you look at the graph, you can literally see when I just kind of gave up my enthusiasm, it just goes downhill.
And the funny thing is, even on, and I saw that graph, even on those valleys, you still were making a substantial amount, at least to pay the bills and stuff, and a little bit more with the little effort and all the things you're going through. So that's a product of all the work that you put in the pipeline years before. So even if you go through some negative times, that's the whole part of planning, right? Like you plan so that if something happens in life that's unexpected, you're at least helping yourself take care of your future self to get through those moments, right? So it's not like it went away. It's not like the ink went away. It just lowered down a little bit, right?
I like that lesson. I like it. And You can see it in the content. People weren't responding as much, lose kind of touch with the community. There's so many shifts when you become a content creator. I think now we're in a great spot to where there's new fertilizer called Shorts, for example, on YouTube. There's, my community starting to get more engaged. I actually have it's called a beat battle league where producers can showcase their skill. And I've created like a tournament series. It's doing really well, actually. And I'm like, why don't I create the NBA, but for music producers? Like, instead of chasing placements, they call it, where, I have to get a song with Ariana Grande to be popular or get known. I said, why don't we just create this NBA type league before music production to where they battle beats, almost like Battle of the Bands, I guess.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and then just have, just like the NBA, get sponsors.
They don't have it already, Carl?
They do, but nobody dedicated their life to it.
Mm.
So we have 57,000 people on our Discord, for example, and an email list of hundreds of whatever thousands. But the point is, we have their attention. So it's like, we need to raise their value. So I'm starting to become invested in raising the value of them, as a producer community. I just feel like I have a lot of responsibility. I think you'll find those stories from these entrepreneurs, they too gained a lot of responsibility, which raised them up in life. Like, in order to go higher, you have to be responsible. And what responsible means is to respond, to have a sensor for stuff. And you become a little more, I can't say sensitive, but aware, and a little more cautious of an outcome. I know I'm sounding crazy, but you actually care about outcomes, is my point.
Mm.
So that's all I had to say. You have talked to Titans. I'm not saying anything brand new. I'm just trying to get off thoughts.
So yeah, and so Carlin, when you were released from that deal with that whatever that company was, the channel, would you say at that point it was like a release, like you were able to get your motivation back, because now you're able to keep all your profits for the most part, and not have to pay someone else for doing nothing? Like, would you say that was a motivator to when your rebound, when your comeback?
That's what I forgot to mention. I'm glad you asked that question, because in the midst of kind of losing that enthusiasm, I actually started to, cut off your nose to spite your face. I would just unmonetize every video because I didn't want them to get the money. So I'm like,
Jeez.
Let me just unmonetize all my videos. Bad idea. But I did that for like a year because I was so fed up with just somebody in my pocket. And I know people had that frustration before, but almost, what's it called? Self-sabotage.
Yeah.
But not in a way where it's subconscious. It's just like, I'm tired of overly giving and not receiving. It was a leech relationship instead of a symbiotic relationship. So yeah, that was a mental thing I went through in 2017, on top of like breakups and all that type of stuff. So yeah, it was a lot going on at that time. To answer your question though.
And but then when that was over, that was building you back up. You were motivated at that point, right?
Oh yeah, then I got
come
in a
back.
new relationship, got my money back, and then you get a little more motivated because you own more of your effort. That makes sense.
And okay, so thank you, Carlin. You're doing great here. So just to fill in some blanks before we get to the questions, you do other things, right? And we talked about you as a YouTuber, but reality is we didn't talk about what you do. So you're a beat maker. You love music, right? You could have went to medical school, but instead you took the path of music and making beats and all that stuff. And you just used YouTube as a platform to do that. But the reality is you could have been talking about anything. You were talking about driving buses or tying your shoes. What is it about music that you love so much that has made you go this path? Why music on YouTube? Why not anything else?
Yeah, to be fair, it was all I knew and it was what worked. So because I had it in college, the channel, I was covering this program we call FL Studio for music production. And it was almost like a video game at that time. But because it worked and that's all I knew, I went, let me just invest in whatever I know already, instead of trying to learn something new and become this other person. I've tried jewelry. I've been in other industries now, like coaching people in fashion, fitness. We're going to figure out a bunch of film, okay, Web3 even. So I've been in other industries just to see if my philosophies work, which they do. But the thing is, I don't know what it is about music. It's just, I think at the end of the day, no matter how many millions somebody makes, they want to be creative. The only way I know this, and it's going to sound geeky, but there's this game, Grand Theft Auto 5. Have you heard of it?
Um, no,
Never heard of Grand Theft Auto? Well, it's
no.
by this company.
It's a game?
Yeah, it's a video game.
Okay.
So in the video game, this is
I'm
like
probably telling my age by doing that. I mean, you asked me about Atari or Nintendo.
yeah, it's huge.
Uh,
So Grand Theft Auto is a series where you can, in the new one, the Grand Theft Auto 5, you could you can create a character and live in this LA type of world. It's a criminal world, but there's money, there's businesses. And so I got to psychologically feel what it's like to get $35,000. I know it's not real money, but you get to see what it's like mentally. And then you earn your way up to 20 million, and then you go 40 million, and then you spend it all, and you're down to like 50,000. So and what I realized at the end of the game, not the end of the game, but when you make so much money, you just want to be creative and you want to watch stuff grow. And that's when I realized it's not the money we want, it's the desire to get to the ability to create or grow something. And then that's what I started focusing on, is how do I create and then grow? So I contribute to other people's lives with education and information. I get to create because I do it through music, and it's a creative form for me. And then I get to see other people grow, as well as BusyWorks Beats grow. So it fulfills all those needs that I have in that category. That's why I got addicted to it, helping people. And then you learn business and marketing, and then it becomes extra fun when you learn how to, get a little more philosophical. I'm going to pull up a plugin in the background, if you don't mind, to play keys, just to show people a transformation. So, okay, can you hear that?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I went from, I'm not going to make this long, but I went from not knowing anything. Like I can literally close my eyes now. I landed on the note D for people who care, but I have a chord code that I discovered where it's like DNA for music. I can literally teach you if you had a keyboard near you. But I can literally close my eyes, pick any key, doesn't matter. And the chord code, for example, is 037. You literally, wherever you start is 0. And then you count up your keyboard to finish this code, it's called. So I'm going to count up 1, 2, 3. Then you play 037 all at once. And this is what's called a minor chord. Once I found that out, I started to expand my music knowledge. And I realized that people were teaching, musicians for 4 years in college, basic harmony, when I can do this with numbers. So I can even teach a technical brain how to be creative. And once I figured this out, this opened up a new rabbit hole in music for me. So I went from making simple stuff like this to now making really complex stuff.
Carlin, we can't hear it. Oh, there we go.
You can hear it?
Yeah, we heard the last one, not before that.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to go on a whole thing. I was just saying,
okay.
I went from, when you see yourself go from this to now being able to play gospel and R&B chords like this. Because of numbers, and you could do that pretty immediately. Once you learn how fast you can move and get huge results, that becomes addicting. So that's what got me into the rabbit hole of music. Is it's like what is called the fractal universe. So you go from one big topic, like how Jesus in the Bible said, all the laws can be summed up to one: love one another, or love God and love your neighbor, basically. But under that one commandment, you have 10, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet others' wives, whatever. Then if you go to the Talmud and the other commandments, then there's hundreds of commandments. So there's always something deeper than the surface thing. So I went from this surface thing, finding out there's deeper, and then going even deeper and going, there's always 1,000,001 things to study with music. That's what keeps me excited, is just digging a deeper hole into the mind, so to speak.
And when you built this, this music business on YouTube, you're not just monetizing with Google AdSense. I mean, you've got a whole world behind that now, which is like you sell beats. Can you give us a little summary of the other things that you're doing to make money? It just seems like a lot of stuff. Courses, probably, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So on YouTube, that was the first revenue source. And I was making $500 a month, and I thought that was spectacular, which it was for YouTube at the time. And then you level that up And then I created products at that point. So my first launch was a course slash sound pack. So in music production, we seek sounds. That's like our thing. We're just addicted to finding new sounds. I even sampled my baby crying. Like that's how addicted to sounds we are. And so that launched it really well. I had a lot of frustrations with it without telling you the whole story. But that took my income from 600 to 6,000. And then once you see that jump, you go, okay, how can I create more value? Let me create another sound pack, create another course. So the revenue sources that I have, YouTube, and the course material, I create sounds and templates. Then I started getting into plugin development. So I ran into somebody who can help me develop software. So now I have software. Then from there, I moved, well, not technically linearly, but we also had live events at one point before, COVID and everything. We had live events as well. So what is that? 5 pillars. And then I had 2 other pillars that are slipping my mind
Affiliates.
right now.
I know you're doing some affiliate stuff, right?
Oh yeah. And then you got affiliates and you got the creative agency type stuff I did with my mentor. So, I mean, if you add them all up, technically there's like 7 plus.
And that explains you reading Robert G. Allen's book, Multiple Streams of Income.
Literally, right? Yeah. But it's like, there's only 2 that are powerhouses though. Like I know the software is the best earner I've had, and then courses, and then everything else. So everything else is cool, but it's not, it's not the hit star of the record label.
And at this point, the YouTube money is secondary compared to the rest of your businesses, right?
Yeah, thank God for YouTube though, because it's a great supplement, I will say. Because the days where I'm like, is this my bill for the Amex this month? I'm like, okay, great. YouTube can just pay that. That's great. YouTube is really good. I got to say, it's super consistent. For anybody thinking to get into YouTube, just do it. And it's consistent for years and years and years.
Thank you, Carlin. All right, Carlin, before we get into the questions, I forgot, and before I forget, you want to give me a quick tour of your studio? I see that you use it in a lot of your videos too, and probably your audience as well wants to know what's going on back there. You got a lot of fancy stuff.
Yeah, is there a way to pause the recording so I can unlatch my camera?
Oh no, probably just from this position. Just if you just want to point.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so for all the geeks out there, okay, I can kind of turn the camera too. So over here, I don't know if you guys can see it, but down here is called a patch bay. Okay. And I have a rack unit, and then I have guitar pedals on the floor that you can't see. I have a bass guitar. I have a lot of stuff behind the camera that you can't see. It's speakers, all this type of stuff. Behind me, I have what's called a Moog Subsequence 37, which is used for like hip hop and West Coast stuff. Underneath, I have a Sequential Prophet 6, which is used for the weekend type of artistry. I have underneath a Korg Kronos, which is a powerhouse. It just does anything you need it to do for sounds. So the question might be, why does a music producer need all these keyboards? It's because the designers of these keyboards are masters of creating sounds, and they all do it differently. So that's why we need all these specific tools for the trade. Now to the right,
that was actually my question too. Why do you need all those keyboards? So
yeah, people think we just play keys and you just play piano and that's it, but it has a ton of sounds that a lot of people don't. You can't get from other things. Now behind me too, in the corner, so I have 6 plus keyboards, and I have 3 over here that you can't see.
Wow.
So keyboard fiends we are. Up top is a MIDI controller, it's called. Then I have the Roland FA08, it's called, which is a remake of like a Phantom type keyboard. You don't need to memorize all this. Yamaha Motif X8, for those who understand. That was like a hit keyboard for like Pharrell and the Neptunes and Scott Storch and all those guys back in like the 2000s. So yeah, I mean, it gets geeky. And then you get the Moog Voyager, which is like the weekend 80s type sound. I got a Yamaha DX7, which is used for like 80s sounds. And then a Prophet 08, which is used for like funk and 80 sounds too. So yeah, I have a lot of stuff too that I didn't mention on the floor, but ultimately the journey is, as a music producer, we're chasing sound, but also we're chasing education. That's when I realized courses are so important. It's because I bought this stuff so that I can learn what it's like to be in a real studio. So that when I go to a real studio, I go, oh, I know how to use that thing already. Or I'll buy a software plugin. I spent hundreds of thousands on just software plugins that mimic real physical units, because I just wanted to learn. It was just, we go on this learning spree because we want to see, I guess our ultimate desire or fulfillment is when we can create through the eyes of somebody else. And I think maybe the creator gets that enjoyment too. Like, why create humans? What's the purpose of humans? What's the purpose of life? Maybe the purpose is to see through a different perspective and create through a different perspective. Because the creator expresses through our physical bodies. So like we're just different paintbrushes, technically, if we're being like esoteric about it. And that's the same joy that we get as music producers. Today, I might want to create a Britney Spears track. Tomorrow, I might want to create a The Weeknd track, Drake track, 21 Savage, or whoever the rapper is. And that's what it's always a new challenge because you're trying to figure out like a puzzle. So that's kind of what it is for music producers. And that's what, that's how we end up with studios like this. I want to see if I can.
Eh,
I guess there's
Hey,
nothing to see behind
Carlin,
the
I just
YouTube.
want to pause real quick. I don't know
Oh,
if
go
you
ahead.
realize this, but if you can clip the last minute, that would be an incredible short because you just said something so profound. It's like we're like the paintbrushes of the creator. Maybe
Yeah,
that's why we were created, right? Like
yeah.
trying to
I really,
express, he's getting joy through expression through their creation. Like it's
I really
just
believe that.
that's a great, beautiful analogy there. So.
I learned from a Kabbalistic teacher on Clubhouse, ironically. He told me the definition of music. He's like, the definition of music is to reach your highest joy so that you can commune with your higher self.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, that's what music's for. So you're so happy that you're talking to your higher self. And I thought that was interesting. So shout out to him. I forget his name, but it was a Kabbalistic teacher. I do remember that. But
Well,
yeah, I have the YouTube plaque over here just to show
okay,
people
Carl.
over.
Oh,
So these are
cool.
like speakers, and then the YouTube plaque's way in the corner, way off camera. I should probably have it to where people can actually see it, but I don't. So that's the downstairs studio. But I had a commercial studio at one point, and it's a bunch of stuff,
Hey,
moving stuff around.
Colin, I forgot to tell you, I interviewed you. I mean, you got a lot of synergy here. Frank Knuckles Walker from The Roots. So I think you'd appreciate that. So he was from Philly, West Philly.
Yeah,
So yeah, like he's a drummer. Maybe I'll put you guys together. You do the keyboard and he he does the
yeah,
drums.
yeah. The Roots are heavy. There's a studio called Forge Recording Studio
Uh,
outside of Philadelphia, and I'm sure they passed through there a couple times. Once you figure out that the music industry is this small, like truly this small,
really?
it's just like, yeah, it's very small. There's only a handful of spots that people go to. And once you realize everybody goes to the same spot, it's like, oh, it's just, are you there? Are you not there? And then that's what the music industry has become.
Well, thank you, Carlin. All right, so Carlin, we're going to move into our next segment here. All right, folks, we're back. We've got an incredible guy here. We've got Carlin Hines, amazing music beat producer, YouTuber, Clubhouser.
Right.
So, welcome back, Carlin, and we're getting into our next segment. These questions I've asked everyone from from Sharon Lecter to Les Brown and Brett Favre, you name it, that's been on here. These are well, actually, I'm sorry. Before we get to the temple questions, these are unique to you, actually. These will be very specific questions, and then we'll get into the temple questions, like I mentioned. But I don't know. Did you say first one would be about books? Do you have any books that you've produced, or anything like to talk about your books? Maybe digital books or anything like that?
Oh yeah, they're completely free. I don't charge for them. But the first one's called The Producer Bible. That one's about mindset and just thought processes. And then I have another book called Busy Signal, and that one teaches music producers how to build an online business. So those are my two books.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And where can people find them?
I guess go to busyworksbeats.com/book.
Slash book. Okay. So yeah, you have your whole website with a lot of your products on there, right?
Yeah, my mission with the books is just get them out to anybody and all people. I don't care if they sell the books or whatever. I just wanted my message out there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. All right, next question is about your podcast. So, did you said you had a podcast, and if you want to tell us all about that?
Yeah, it's really on YouTube only. It's not syndicated yet. But it's just a break from my music production tutorials. Instead, I talk about life, education, finance, all these other topics that create the rounded music producer. So instead of just focusing on a hyper skill, I say, what's the bigger picture? Because the bigger picture is what actually creates opportunities. And that's what I'm trying to educate my audience on specifically, is how to be a better person on top of learning how to slide 808s, I say. And it just makes for a better result ultimately.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you, Carlin. And when's the last time you actually interviewed on your podcast? Did you say you paused it for a while?
I just did one with this the marketer, I think CMO of BeatStars. They had $150 million in revenue since, I guess, starting the company, from music producers online selling their music online. So I picked his brain recently. I want to say within the last 2 weeks. His name is Mike Trampy, by the way.
Mike Trampy. Oh, okay. So yeah, you still you keep it active depending on the scenario. If you got a good guest that you like to highlight.
Yeah, I'm actually on a campaign called Producer President. I took this from Trump because he's always campaigning before the campaign even begins. So I was just like, how do I do this, but in my world? So I created something called the Producer President, where I'm running for producer president. My goal is to just solve problems within the producer community. And so whether that means calling up somebody out of a single library, or calling the BeatStars CMO, or talking to whoever, bringing them in the conversation so that people can get educated and actually grow on a bigger community level instead of just making beats. So I'm actually on that campaign starting this year, moving into next year, like a
I love
presidential
this
campaign.
idea. This is great. The producer president. So I like myself producer president of the whole world. You guys
One
got
of my
problems, just come to me.
one of my affirmations is I'm happy and excited to be the leader of the audio community around the world.
I
This is
love
just me trying to take action on my affirmation.
that. That's awesome. Thank you, Carlin. All right, Carlin. Next question is about Busy Works Beats. So if you want to tell us about the company, what the title, where did you get that from? Anything you can to really highlight and explain the concept and the business of Busy Works Beats.
Yeah, the name came from, I love this producer called Pharrell. He was like running the game of hip hop back in the 2000s. Him and the Neptunes, they're called. And he wore these cool graphic hoodies called Bape, Bathing Ape. And so I love the hoodies. And they had a store in New York called Busy Works. Busy Works. So all I did in that age, you would just add beats to the end of stuff. So if it's like Grimace Beats or whatever beats. So I just took the name of the Busy Works shop, added beats on the end, stuck by it for years and years and years, even though it didn't make sense, and made a brand out of it. And I forgot the other part of the question, unfortunately.
Yeah, so it's your brand, and then from within Busy Works Beats, you sell all your products. That's your company's name, right? Busy Works Beats.
Right. Right. So yeah, we have courses, sounds. Basically, if people want to dive deep, again, we train over 900,000 producers around the world. So we're going to work with Kanye West, Post Malone, Drake, Ariana Grande, French Montana, Young Thug, Lil Baby, Polo G, Trippie Redd, J.Cole. If people want to experience what it's like to get trained as a music producer, even if they know nothing about music production, I tell them to go to premium.busyworksbeats.com, because I offer a 14-day free trial and free courses that they can just dive deep and just learn how to create from scratch. I even have something called chord codes, which is my most prized miracle in a bottle. So just type in chord codes, Busy Works Beats, and they'll find something cool. If they want to, if you know nothing about music.
And Carlin, if you can expand just on, because that's a very heavy statement to say you trained over 900,000 music producers. Can you elaborate on how you did that and like how that, just to, so people can understand what it is that you actually do?
Sure, yeah, that's just YouTube numbers. I didn't include Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I didn't include the whole gamut and our email list. So it's over that number. But
That's views
mainly
or like what are you counting in the metrics? Is it people that viewed it, those videos?
just YouTube subscribers. I'm going based on that.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm so niche. People aren't watching me for entertainment, I wouldn't assume. But even let's say there's 100,000 people who watch it for entertainment purposes, which I doubt. I still have an audience on Instagram that's 150,000. We have the email list. It's 200.
250,000, right?
Oh, on Instagram,
Yeah, I think you got 250,000 over there.
it's almost 150,
Oh, okay.
49. because I've been stuck at 148 for a while. I'm almost at 150.
Okay.
But even, so the point is, I guess to say that the only way I know about all these stories is when people write me back or tag me in something. So the only way I know that somebody won a Grammy and got platinum plaque and worked with all these artists, or if they talk to me directly or they reported back or tagged me. There's a lot of artists that I didn't name, but it's just cool for people to acknowledge where they got information from. So, that's kind of where it came from. I just have a high conversion rate for all the marketers out there. My opt-in rate is like 97% or 95%. So everybody who goes to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio, I have a high conversion rate because people just trust me. They want to go on the journey and it's hyper focused. And then they opt into the email list, which my email list was up to 600 something thousand at one point.
Wow.
Chopped it down
Really?
on MailChimp. Yeah, it was 600 something thousand contacts.
That's very good.
Yeah. So I used to run ads and do all this type of stuff. It's just so I had to chisel it down and get micro niched. So now I moved over to what's called Active Campaign. I don't use MailChimp anymore. So that's where I'm getting the numbers from. I have email lists, I have social media, YouTube, Instagram, and then I have a Discord of 57,000 producers. So when people tell me, sorry to make this longer than a minute, but when
No,
people
this is good stuff. This is important for branding, so people can understand. We're going to have some follow-up points in this, but this is very, very important. If you want to learn how to build a business, you got to understand about audience size and where to get it from, and how each of those groups react to each other. So
yeah, I have 4 tips for you later too. But yeah, once I saw growth on all these platforms, I'm like, this cannot be a fluke because I grew a Discord from scratch. I grew an Instagram from scratch. I grew YouTube, email list. It's just too much growth to say that it's just a one-time, one-hit wonder type thing.
yeah, and just real quick, a point about that email list, which is, in my opinion, probably more powerful than anything you have. You know, it's the lower number because you do have almost 1 million subscribers on YouTube, but to have, and I know you said you chopped down a lot, but let's just go with the higher number for now, 600,000. What I found out from being around some of the biggest marketers in the world, 1,000, let's say 1,000 people on your newsletter or your email campaign is probably equivalent to 100 times that, at least 10, but mostly probably 100 times that of followers, because you have direct control over that email list. Like I have over 1 million followers on Facebook, but like I'm lucky if they show it to 50,000, right? Or even 5,000 sometimes these days. It wasn't that way in the beginning, but as you start making posts that may not comply with them, like for example, promoting Clubhouse or other social media platforms, I got dinged from that. So you're not always given access to all of your own followers, but with the email list, you are always. Now, whether or not they're reading it, that's a different story, but they're getting the message at least. So that's why it's way more powerful exponentially than a follower base on some other person's social media platform. So going back to what you said, like having that list, I mean, that's not easy to do, and you did it. So I commend you for that.
I learned that from Jeff Walker, the importance of an email list and just launching stuff. And yeah, too, nowadays with email, it gets filtered by Google. Even still, it's still stuff dealing with email, but at least on email, you could sell stuff without it being like completely restricted, in the algorithm. If they see one banner that even looks like a banner, they're like, you could run ads and pay for this, or I'm going to show it to 2 of your 100,000 followers. And that's just the game right now for social media. That's how they make money. So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, the most power if you guys are building social media presence is the email list or text list, because you actually own the relationship. I can't take my Instagram followers and move them over to YouTube. I can't take my Facebook followers and move them over to TikTok. But I can move my email list from one provider to the next, because I did that twice.
Did you really? How
Yeah.
did that work when you did that?
What they don't tell you is when you move to a new platform, I went from MailChimp to Klaviyo. They terminated my account. I didn't know about warming up an audience at that time. So I sent everybody an email right away. And you're supposed to warm up the contacts first. I didn't know that, but they terminated my account for that. Wow. So I moved from Klaviyo over to Active Campaign. And again, what they don't tell you is that even though you move 600,000 people, it doesn't mean that you'll be able to access all 600,000 people on the next platform, because you have to warm up and almost what's the word? Confirm their opt-in.
Yeah.
And it's a process.
Yeah,
So
because they have to go in, sorry to interrupt you, they have to go in and confirm that they subscribe to that account, right?
yeah, and so that's the part they don't tell you. So that's where I lost a little bit of the chunk, because I didn't want to keep paying MailChimp $2,500, $3,000 a month.
Wow.
Going
That
over
much?
I sent out like 2 million emails 1 month, and they upped the bill, and it was too random. So I just moved to somebody that I can understand, which is Active Campaign. But yeah, I was sending out a lot of emails.
Wow. So you lost some by going over to another platform. There was some
Unfortunately,
spillover.
but I've learned now how to tag. See, I didn't know how to tag back then and segment properly. So now, I guess this is a tip for your audience. If you're building an email list, have one list of like whatever your business is, have it as a list. And then create what are called tags. So everybody has a specific interest in your business. If it's a fitness business, you might have abs people, you might have men, you might have women, you might have like, what is it called? What's it called when people work out really hard? I forget what it's called. Cross training.
Yeah, CrossFit.
CrossFit. So you might have CrossFit people. So you put them in buckets, and those are called tags. So I made the mistake of creating a list per the interest. Don't do that. Just create a list for your business and then tag people based on their interest. And then if you have a CrossFit offer, you just send it to the CrossFit people instead of everybody. And that helps chisel down and segment, it's called, your audience and your message.
Wow, that's
That's what I
amazing.
learned.
No, that's really good information, folks, because nowadays, no matter what your business is, if you're operating online, at some point you're gonna have to cross this this barrier, and this conversation will be extremely relevant. So, and it's a permanent conversation. This is something that you'll always need to work on. So thank you, Carlin. Appreciate that. So Carlin, next question is why is music important? Maybe in 60 seconds or less.
Music is important because I can work miracles. I can close my eyes, pick a random key. I could literally count up my keyboard. Let's say the chord code is 037. Wherever you land is 0. Count up your keyboard to the next number. 1, 2, 3. Now keep counting. 4, 5, 6, 7. Play all those notes together. You just created harmony. Harmony is the magic of the universe. So now I can generate mood through harmony. I can literally move people's emotions with numbers. So now I can get deeper with it. You can take it further and further into different harmonies, but with different keys, you learn about emotions, and emotions drive commerce. So once you learn how to move people's emotions, music becomes an ultimate, commerce becomes an ultimate end goal of music, if you want to take it that far, or whatever your message is. So music is actually a driver. And once I saw it as a driver, that's what kept me interested.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Carlin. All right. So why do you and you already sort of answered this, but if you want to just rehash it, maybe 30 seconds or less, why do you like music? Maybe just focus just on that question. Why do you like music?
Music helps me express and see through the lens of other people's perspectives, which gives me, I value other people's perspectives, and it creates empathy, technically. So because I want to create with a new challenge, it actually helps me to accept other people's ideas. So it helps me grow as a person, as well as get off that need to create something from scratch. And I mean, if the creator created a universe from scratch, which is his ultimate project, then I'm pretty sure they embedded that into our DNA, to where we want to create stuff too. So it's just fun. So if the creator wants to do it, I'm sure I want to do it too. If it brings that much joy,
Hmm.
that's why I like music.
That's brilliant, Carlin. Carlin, what is a music producer?
Music production is, well, there's a debate now, so that's a good question. A beat maker is somebody who specifically programs the background music. A music producer is a person who makes sure that the product of the song is delivered. So a song and a beat are two different things. A music producer guides almost like a coach or a leader or a session. And a beat maker is somebody who provides almost like the drums or like the keyboard for the session, but they're not the person who brings the entire song together. So imagine a band. Okay, the music producer tells the band what to do and then make sure that the final product is exactly what they intended. A beat maker is somebody who's creative enough to come up with the micro component ideas. So that's the difference in our community. There's a whole debate about beat maker versus music producer, but that's what a music producer does. The product is a song and they deliver that product,
Would,
even if
would,
they don't play keys and all this type of stuff.
would you say you're both then? You're a beat maker and a music producer?
Yeah, I identify as a content creator and a business person more than I do those things because it helps me be a little more
Flexible.
fluid.
Yeah.
So that's how I identify
Yeah.
personally.
Going back to Bruce Lee, be like water.
There we go. Yeah, put that on a shirt.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Carl. All right, Carl. Next question: how much money do music producers make in
I
general?
think if you Google it, it says something like 90,000. If you look at the average on BeatStars, people who sell music online, I would love to see their numbers, but they made 150 million. I think they're almost near 300 million earned selling beats online since they started, which is impeccable for a new market. Now divide that by however many creators they have. I don't know the average, to be fair, but there's more revenue with publishing as well. So nobody really shares numbers because they don't want people in their pockets. But I will say that I'll give you three categories. Okay, a working producer in the industry, the music industry, probably makes about 50,000 if they're on a pub deal or signed to a greater subsidiary of the three monopoly companies, Sony, Warner, or Universal, somewhere around 50K. Now, if you're independent outside of that system, anywhere from 3,000 to 20,000. It's just there's a beginner level with entrepreneurship that they're not really cracking the ceiling. Then you have people who do it independently, who are completely free from the system, like myself and all these other creators who have figured out a lane. Now, these guys can make anywhere from 100 to I've seen a guy do $1 million off of a simple plugin launch in 3 months. So it's just the numbers range. But if I had to divide it over the top creators, I'd say like 200,000 per creator at the top. But that's the top. So I don't know about everybody. I don't know about the other numbers though.
Okay. And we probably could have a whole session just on that, like to explain the whole music industry and stuff. I'm just trying to keep it general here because I know you're a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that area. So just to thank you, by the way, Carl. So just to
Oh, thank you.
focus on the next topic. So let's talk about YouTube now. So can you make money with YouTube in 30 seconds or less? And I know you already touched on a lot of these questions, but we're just going to go focus on some of these now.
Yes, you can make a ton of money on YouTube. It's consistent. It's fulfilling if you create a brand that actually uplifts other people, and it's addicting. And you learn so much about marketing. Everybody wants to be YouTube. Look at all the social medias. They want to be long form. They want to have people's attention. They want to have that thumbnail experience. But Google figured it out and they're dominating for that reason. And that's why I vote YouTube.
That's brilliant. So how to get attention with YouTube Shorts. Now, you had mentioned about doing these shorts they just came out with like super, super short videos, as the name implies. And that's kind of the new way to go about it. So how do you make money with them though?
How do you make money with shorts?
Yeah.
Okay, well, shorts, I've had a video have almost 2 million views as a short. It only made $50. So the goal isn't direct money with shorts. It's bringing in the subscribers who will watch our long form videos. That's what brings in the money. So long form past 8 minutes, that's what brings in the revenue. You could have a video do 3,000 views and make $100. And that's good for just one video with 3,000 views. So that's where the money comes from. Now, the attention part of the question, the trick to attention is people expect the negative. Or you want to restart the question? Sorry, I went into a diatribe.
Oh, yeah. How to get attention with YouTube Shorts?
Okay, sure. Yeah, the key is that humans look for flaw. So introduce something that seems negative and then spin it into a positive. That will keep people's attention all the way to the end. I've also seen a technique where they'll film the video starting at like the middle of the video, then they'll film to the end, and then they'll edit it to where they chop off the end and put it in the beginning. And what this does is it creates a loop to where you don't even know that the video is restarting. So I've seen that happen a lot, specifically in the music field too. So that works a lot because people don't know it's restarting, and then you have another view, and then when your watch time goes up, it just helps.
So wait a minute. So you're saying they have like basically the same video and it's on repeat on one long video.
Yes, but I just gotta make sure I'm communicating right. So for example, you know how Star Wars started at like 3 or whatever number it started on, and then it went back to 1 and then 2 and then 3.
Mhm.
So the same thing here is that instead of me going, hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to create this thing with your 808, I'm going to do something, demonstrate something, and then I'm going to transition into the introduction. And then, I'm going to say, and this is how you create jazz chords. And then it restarts, and then you see me playing. It's hard to really explain it without seeing it. But the key is you film your video, you move the intro to the middle, you chop off the end, put the end in the front, so that people don't even know what the end of the video is. It just perfectly loops because you've already filmed the stuff in a flowing motion. It's not like a jump cut.
Okay.
So basically film your video, chop the end off, put it in the front.
That's interesting. I never heard that one before.
Yeah.
So also what lessons can we learn about making money from, let's say, Mr. Beast? Now this guy is obviously the biggest YouTuber out there. 100 and what 80 almost 180 million subscribers. I'm sure at some point you've at least looked at him, let alone possibly studied him. What lessons can we learn from someone like him?
Sure. Is the importance of YouTube thumbnails. It's like Jay Abraham said, what's the first thing people see? On YouTube, it's the thumbnail or the title. That's it. If you don't get that right, they're not going to see the rest of the stuff. So to get better thumbnails, study highlighting, for example, saturation overlays with the color filling, and learn how to do the masking. That's very important for YouTube. YouTube's all about highlighting and that's it, basically highlighting and learning masking. Now, also with YouTube, forgive me, my brain paused for a second. You said, what else did I learn from Mr.
Yeah,
Beast?
that's okay. It was a perfect pause because you just said something profound. So if you took the let's say a typical Mr. Beast video and you took out his thumbnail and just put a blank, regular thumbnail, just completely blank. There's no images, there's nothing. What what would be the impact on that video? Everything else is the same. When you click on it, the video is still there, but the thumbnail is nothing. There's absolutely nothing there. So what kind of impact do you think that would have just from that
Um,
technique alone?
Now, because he is celebrity, so he releases, people anticipate it regardless. But if he was a nobody, we wouldn't click on it. And that's just the simple math of the universe. Um, but for better thumbnails, have one main character and then have some kind of call to action, which is like an arrow or some kind of statement. And another way to do thumbnails is to have a before and after transition. So a transformative, like take something from here to there. And then when people study highlighting, here's the last tip is for thumbnails. You're going to need a lot of saturation and a lot of contrast for your thumbnails to look cartoony like they look on YouTube. And that's kind of the style of YouTube right now.
What's some good platforms to use to make thumbnails? Like in video, I don't know if you heard that. It seems like a good way to make thumbnails. I'm not sure, like video editors,
Yeah,
thumbnail editors.
I use Photoshop mainly just because I'm used to it. But there's a free one called Photo P, which is like Photoshop for free. I haven't tried any of the other stuff like Canva and all that, so I can't vouch for that stuff.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other lessons for YouTube? And by the way, we forgot to round your story up. Anything else you want to add to your story to take us to present? I should have asked you this 20 minutes ago.
Oh no, I mean, my story's in an ever-evolving book, so just whatever I did yesterday is the continuation of the story. Um, yeah, my life isn't that dramatic and exciting, but I'll say I was born when I was 18, put it that way. My life didn't start until I was 18. Um, yeah, and going back to YouTube real quick, is you asked about shorts and the impact of Mr. Beast, is just to realize there's two buckets of YouTube. There's entertainment side and then there's education side for the most part. People have to decide which side they want to be on because entertainment side is called interruption based content. and education style is usually search-based content. And there's two different traffic expectations for both. So it's people usually get frustrated when they're in the education side and they're expecting the numbers from an entertainment style approach. They want everybody to open their video every single time and have 30,000 views every single video. And that's not the case if you're search-based. So just to have that mentality going in, not to freak out if your numbers aren't skyrocketing every single video.
Yeah, and just to parlay what you said from a Clubhouse perspective, same thing here. Like I run one of the top stages there, and mine's is educational. But no matter what I do, I mean, I can have Tony Robbins show up and Oprah, most likely, other than those examples. But the point is, you can have some of the top news folks open up their room, and it's always going to be higher numbers because that's entertainment, right? Like mine's is a little bit entertainment, but it's mostly education mixed with entertainment, more education. So it's because of that factor that ratio is always going to be imbalanced when you compare apples to apples, right? Because uh, it's just that way. So piggybacking off what Carlin's saying here, don't expect the big volume compared to if you're doing education compared to some of those others, because human nature just they want to be entertained, and they're going to have more because of that. You're going to have a higher concentration of a higher population of people driving towards that goal, finding those type of videos. So,
True.
yeah,
That's 100% true.
yeah.
We're
Thank you,
right on
Carl.
the dot. How are we making out?
Yep. So thank you, Carl. All right. So Carl, next question. We're just going to go through our next series of questions. I'm going to apply the same question, but to different social media platforms. I know you have experience with them all. Figure about 30 seconds each. Can you make money with Instagram?
Yeah, a lot of people got frustrated when they got rid of the reel bonus, but I just got the offer like the other day where ads can run on your reels. I don't know if it's a certain requirement threshold, but they've monetized it again. So first it
Really?
was monetized, took it away, and then now it's remonetized on Instagram.
Wow.
And they tell you when you go to your dashboard, it just has a little message at the top above your DM. You click it to learn more, and then you activate the monetization. So yeah, they've remonetized on Instagram. I was shocked.
Yeah. I mean, but here's the point about taking it off and coming back. Don't you feel that kind of upsets the creators where they're like, well, they're losing trust in them a little bit, because what if you go down this path and you create all this content and then and then they just take it off and unmonetize it, and you base this income stream off of the trust that they would keep it going, and they didn't.
True. I think here's my guess. I mean, I don't know. These guys play a way bigger game than I know. I think they wanted to get people. How do you explain it? It's like training a dog. Like how you train a dog and you tell it
Yeah.
to sit. What do you need to have in your hand? A treat. So you keep giving him the treat until he sits when you say sit, until he sits without the treat. And they just wanted people to create reels until it became the norm. And then it's like, I'm already deep in, why stop now type of thing.
Mm.
And also Threads to me was just a way to get people's minds off the fact that Instagram wasn't monetized and to get people to create even more free content. But I mean, it is
For their benefit,
for their benefit. But it's
to
like, what
promote
other
them,
game is? Huh? Sorry.
to promote their company.
Yeah. And then
Because every time you post, you're promoting them, right? You're planting a flag in the name of Threads.
deep. And I had to think, well, what other game is there? What I can't just get Google traffic. I have to play the game. They create the rules, unfortunately.
Hmm.
But I'm trying to see my dashboard what the monetization is looking like. Forgive me for looking away. I'm trying to pull up I don't know where it's at, so I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Here we go. Bonuses, I guess. They moved a lot of this stuff. But yeah, I used to get like 300. Here's all I don't know if the video will pick it up.
Well, you sure you want to show that?
Yeah, I don't care about it. It's menial.
You got to move it back just a little bit, though. Oh, there it goes.
Okay, so it's 300, 300, 200. This is from Reels. Now, this took millions and millions of views.
Is that a day or what is that?
This is every month, I want to say.
Oh, for each of those posts.
For like all the posts, it will add it up and then give you a check for like 300. So it was a cool little bonus. It wasn't life-changing,
Oh,
because I do
300.
video.
I'm sorry, you said 300 a month for that?
Yeah, so I would, but it would take a lot of work, 2 million views
Yeah,
a month, or like it would just be an insane amount of views per month. A lot of work. So it didn't met it, like for the same effort on YouTube, you would get 10x that.
really?
Yeah, so it just doesn't, but it's nice to have all your content monetized as opposed to just being free. So it's nice. I'm not gonna complain. It's nice.
Yeah, but then again, you do have 10 times more followers on YouTube. So maybe
Yeah,
that's the
yeah.
reason, right? Like if you had 1 million subscribers on Instagram instead of 150,000,
True.
it might
Sorry.
have been higher, right?
Exactly. I was trying to pull up some numbers. I'm at zero still for the new ad revenue.
Oh,
So
okay.
nothing picked up yet. So it says ads on reels. I just want to show people though. See where it says ads on reels?
Yeah, that's new, right?
Brand new. And so, and here's what they're considering. So actually, I'm wrong. It generated some sense. Can you wait? Sorry. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
So it's proven that there is money being made on
10
Instagram
cent,
again.
10 cent, 5 cent, 5 cent, July
Yeah.
31st to July 24th. Okay.
Yeah. So these videos have about 50,000 views, all the like of all time, but it started counting yesterday. So it might have like 10,000 views total, maybe, or like 2,000 views. I don't know the total views for that much money.
Only certain people are allowed to do the reels though, right? Are allowed access to this monetization scheme right now.
Yeah. I wish they were a little more transparent about thresholds and who gets access to what. It's just not very clear. It just popped up on my dashboard one day.
That's interesting. So I wish they would do it on Facebook, which is the next question. Can you make money with Facebook?
I haven't, but because I never met the threshold. But I had his name is Dorian from Group 82 Music. He had a check for $30,000 from Facebook because he would post content about the music industry and Prince's take on this and so and so's take on that. And it had so many millions of views that he got the maximum bonus check, which is $30,000 from Facebook. So that's the most I've ever seen somebody ever get in my like circle of people. I never got to the monetization part of Facebook though, because I never met the video watch time threshold. And I just never chose to sit down and repost my YouTube videos over to Facebook. It just seemed tedious. And I was too lazy, I guess.
What are they doing? Is it monetization like with ads, just like Google AdSense? Is it the same type of system over there, or what do they have that you can monetize from?
Yeah, it's called the Creator Studio, if people look that up. And there are certain thresholds, similar to YouTube, how you need a certain amount of watch time,
Hmm.
and then some other metric that they calculate before you can turn on the money side. So that's where they get you, is like getting up to that point. It's very difficult to do. But yeah, so that's how it works. Just like YouTube, it requires a certain amount of people engaging with the video and then some other metric that I forget, and then you'll get monetized.
So if someone's got 1 million subscribers, they probably should turn it on.
Yeah, but even I think it's just based on engagement on the videos. I'm not even sure if it's based on subscribers. So, like for example, I have like 200 something thousand on Facebook. I still have to work my way up to, all that watch time. And I think you have to upload a video that's in video form, if that makes sense, not reels. Like it has to
Mm.
be a video. I forget the threshold. Forgive me if I'm
Yeah, I got to give you credit,
speaking.
Carlin. You really you're well rounded in your social media. You've worked on a lot of different um, platforms, not just one. Most people conquer one, they'll stay in that lane, but you've actually tried these different other ones, Instagram and Facebook, etc. So your Twitter, I believe your Twitter's a little weak, but other
Yes.
than that one, most of your other ones are pretty good, right?
Yeah, Twitter. Twitter's the only thing I'm like, how do people grow on Twitter? There's no way this is real growth. It just never moved for me. I will say putting up videos, reels and stuff did help it grow, but it's still a slug. It's a slug.
It doesn't work. Yeah, they don't like videos. They like it's weird because Twitter was my first platform. They really truly do like news type. Like you can create a list, right? This is what I liked it for originally. So I have lists of, let's say, top news places. Let's say 100 of them, and I'll have 100 news sites on this one list. So I can read through the whole list in 5 minutes to see what the news was for the day. So I got my news in 5 minutes, like because
Wow.
each one of them is like one sentence long. And I just go down the list of all the top ones that I put in that list, from BBC to CNN, like Fox News. I put them all in there, and then I get a well diversified opinion. of course, make my own decision. But that's what it seems to work best for, um, because everything's so short. That's what they want. They have, like, talk about attention, this attention deficit. Like, you really got to have one quick sound bite in one sentence for them, to get
Wow.
their attention.
So
But
you use Twitter the way it should have been used. I
yeah, exactly.
didn't even know that was a thing.
So,
Interesting.
well, thank you, Carlin. All right, so Carlin, last question. Well, I'm sorry. Next question. Can you make money with LinkedIn? Have you ever used LinkedIn?
Um, you can actually, I think her name was Shanae. I met her on Clubhouse. She was like queen of LinkedIn or something.
Yes, Shanae. She's got 1 million followers on there too. Yeah.
Yeah, she figured out how to monetize LinkedIn. Um, only thing I have LinkedIn for is talking to a lady who owns building $100 million film studio off of Vancouver Island. It's called Malahat Studios. Shout out to Beverly. But I met her at a random business conference in LA. That's the only reason I use LinkedIn. It's just because she uses LinkedIn, and I just keep up with her every now and again. Shout
Yeah,
out to Beverly.
that's a good point though. Like, yeah, because LinkedIn, you can get access to people that you might not have had access to before. Very, very serious business people. Even in my local area, in our local area, right? Like, that's how I got on there, for the same reason. There was a certain people that were on there, and I knew that they were serious players in the Philadelphia area, especially in real estate. And I'm like, all right, well, let's go in there. And as I dive deep, I realized their whole circle was there, and then the circle got bigger and bigger. So, um, and it's connections. True connections is what LinkedIn is for. When the money comes after.
Interesting, interesting. My dad's in real estate. I'm not totally versed in that world.
Um, yeah. So Carlin, can you make money with Discord?
Discord is
30
very
seconds.
difficult. Um, mm, yes, but no. Discord is more so like the absolute definition of what I call community. So when people say community, Discord is that. You could have your people live stream, you could do beat battles, song feedback, you could do Zoom calls, webinars, trainings, all types of stuff. Gamify your brand basically through Discord. Um, you can monetize it technically if you created a membership program, and then you could offer people what are called exclusive roles that have access to hidden channels, they're called. And then you could basically create a membership. To me, I don't really need that aspect because I already have a membership side of my business. So I'm using Discord purely for just the network effect. How do I bring 50,000 people here who will invite the next 50,000? And then they each add value to themselves within that network instead of me creating the value all the time. That's what I'm using it for. So indirectly, directly, I don't, unless it's a membership, I don't really see ways to monetize outside of memberships and then like masterclass type stuff or coaching, technically. I lost you on your mics.
Oh,
It's all
sorry.
good. And my brain is like, I need to eat and I need to go pick up food soon.
Okay, we're wrapping it up. Okay,
Okay.
so thank you. Sorry, my mic was muted. Can you make money on Clubhouse? Maybe 20 seconds.
I've never made $1 directly through Clubhouse, but I've made a lot of important relationships through Clubhouse that I've never done on any other platform. I think it's because people hear the voice and they hear your actual thoughts. I've done coaching, but it wasn't paid coaching. It was just so I could learn. But that opened up an opportunity to have a mentor who brought me into all these deals that I've never seen in my entire life. So it's one of those things where it's indirect monetization, but I didn't seek monetization. I was just addicted to helping people. And that's why I did Clubhouse.
Brilliant response, Carl. And Carl, we met on Clubhouse.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
all right,
Exactly.
thank you, Carl. Best ways to make money on social media. If you can wrap up our whole discussion here, look at from the 30,000-foot view. Like, what's the
Sure.
best ways? Put all these things together. What's the best ways, in your opinion?
Sure. There's do it yourself, meaning the customer does everything themselves, have that product. It's called the value ladder, technically. Offer something that you just offer it to them, they do it for themselves. Then you do the do it with me. That's like group coaching, I guess, in this example, or a mastermind type group. Then you have the do it for you, which is okay, I'll just do all the work. It's a service business. So you go from licensing out your product to then do it with me takes actual time. And then you do it for me, which is your highest paid thing most of the time. And that's where you spend your time and your expertise doing the service. That's how you monetize through social media. But also, I want to teach people the 4 levels of your social media consumers. You have 1, which is a spectator. These are the people that they say it's just reach. You're just being in front of them. They just see you. They're a spectator. The second level is called a skeptic. The skeptic's role is to question and seek flaw in your business or your video. The third level is called a subscriber. These are the people who actually subscribe and like care about you. And then they give you social digital currency, as Scrap would say from Clubhouse. They tell you, tell their friends, they share the video, they tell their friends to watch, they comment, they like, they do all the social media stuff. Then you have the 4th level, which is the supporter. And the supporter takes their hard-earned dollars out of their pocket, hands them over to you so that you can build the business to then go back to square one, which is that spectator. So how do you bring the spectator in the door? Curiosity. And that's how you pull them in to become what's called a skeptic. How do you convert a skeptic into a subscriber? Skeptics you need to falsify their beliefs about you. So address the objections and falsify them. Then we move from the skeptic level over to the subscriber. How do we convert a subscriber to the next level? We have to deliver their desired outcomes, as Jay Abraham said, I think, in your interview. And once we show them that we can deliver their desired outcomes, they're buying the desired outcome. They're not buying our stuff, as Jay Abraham said. And I say a lot, they're not buying our thing. They're buying a desired outcome. And people want prevalence, which is mastery. They want wealth. They want fitness so they can prolong their genes. And they want social status, which is the main thing that we're selling most days. That's what they actually want. And the 3 levels that I talked about, they do it themselves. That's 1 level where you can license out and scale that way. Okay, these are the product offerings. Then you have the service where you do it with them. That's coaching. And then you have, or the masterminds. And then you have do it for you, which is your ultimate service, your agency work, your whatever else people do, your music production, whatever it is. So that's how I understand social media and how to convert random people to becoming hardcore fans. And then what do I offer them once they become a hardcore fan until we raise their value and get the most value out of it. So that's my little formula.
That's beautiful, man. I love it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlin. All right, Carlin, what role will AI have in making money online? So we didn't talk about that yet. Maybe 30 seconds. I know it's going to be changing a lot of things coming up very soon.
Yeah, in music, you'll be able to, productivity will become an incompetable, if that's a word. You won't be able to compete on productivity. And once you take productivity out, what else do you have? You have growth, you have money, you have research, and you have war, or some people, like content, basically, content wars. This is why Twitter is trying to get rid of the bots, because they're fighting a content war. They don't want AI to flood their content feed. So long story short, when productivity is taken away, all you have left to conquer is domination through acquisition. Do more research, which is AI can pretty much beat us in research, let's be honest, in most fields, even in healthcare. And then we have gold, which AI, what is money to an AI? Doesn't mean anything. So that's the one thing that I don't think will truly be affected. It requires humans to even value what money is. And then we move into growth, which it's very hard for AI to grow an audience, because even though there's Michaela and all these like AI avatars out there, there's still people pushing that brand and that storyline. It's people can sense when something doesn't have that emotion. Like I said before, what makes us human is that we have emotions, and humans relate with other human stories. We resonate with those stories. So the way to get people to move and feel your emotion is literally to resonate. So if an AI isn't having those similar experiences and talking your language and resonating on that emotional level, it won't get the action that it needs to get humans to move. So I think those are the things, the levers that we have as humans, ultimately against AI, are human advantages, so to speak. So your flaws are actually your advantages in this case.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Carlin. Carlin, we're moving into the temple questions here, and then we'll wrap it up. These are very simple 10-second questions. Can one book change the world?
I think multiple perspectives is very important for changing the world. It's hard to change something without a polar opposite, because without a polar opposite, there's no movement. Without point A and point B, there's no movement. If you're just here at point A where you're going, so that you can't change without polarity.
So if you had like the Bible, for example, can the Bible change the world? Can a famous book like that, or Think and Grow Rich, or something like that?
Interesting. I think the Bible introducing the idea of polarity will change the world. Um, Mainly because even going to the story of Job, where, the devil goes up to God and says, "Hey, let me test your believer." And Job gets to put through all these tests. So at the end of the day, it's what is bad, what is good. It doesn't exist without polarity. So once you see life as polarity and not good or bad, you'll start to appreciate even the negative times, people say.
Thank you, Carl. What role has networking played in your life?
Networking is the secret glue. And to build your network, it's total work. Network. What is work? Work is force times distance. What is force? Force is mass times acceleration. You need a body in order to have a force. And what is power? Power is work divided by time. So if you want more power, you need to increase the work over your time. What does that mean? Either lower time that it takes to do something or increase the workforce. How do you build your work? You get other people to work for you. This is what total work is called, networking, meaning you're not the only force that you're gathering. So how do you do that? You create what's called, you galvanize people based on a common intent or a common outcome. And that's how you galvanize the people. So that's how you do it. And basically, once you have people on your side, then you multiply your force multiplier, as J. Abraham calls it, and then you increase your work value, which increases your power value. So that's what power truly is, if you break it down to like physics.
Wow,
I
that
know
is a
that was
brilliant
just
answer.
not yeah, it just went on.
Carlin, you get real deep with stuff. I love it. This is great. So is mentoring important as an extension of that question? And if so, who are some of your mentors?
Yeah, I've learned from Frank Kern, Jeff Walker, J. Abraham, Dan Kennedy, Pharrell Williams, even not directly but indirectly. Man, I'm forgetting so many. Chris Moya helped me in Web3, Sound Oracle for sound design. Yes. And Ron D. Silvestro in recording, and Mixbus TV for mixing. And yes, mentorship basically tells you what not to do so you don't waste your energy doing the things that other people would waste their energy doing, so that you have more energy to do whatever it is. And energy is what you're getting from mentorship.
Brilliant. Thank you, Carl. And next question. I don't know if this is really your wheelhouse, but just in case, I mean, this is a question I ask for everyone. What are your favorite financial books? And in this box, I include investing and money and wealth, all that stuff, business.
Great question. Basic Study Manual by L. Ron Hubbard, funny enough, teaches you the mindset to define words. And then moving into Robert Cialdini's Influence for the psychological triggers that you need in order for money to move. And then for the money books, I would say, I think it's called Ready, what is it called? Ready, Fire, Aim, or Fire, what is it? Michael Masterson wrote the book. And I think it's Ready, Fire, Aim, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he teaches how to build businesses. Now, I haven't studied like markets and stock markets and all that. I haven't studied all that. But those are the books I would say are pivotal.
Thank you, Carlin. Do we need money to survive?
I wish I knew the answer. In this gamified economy called society, yes, because we don't control the assets. At the end of the day, you can put your money in gold, but at the end of the day, you need an army to defend your gold. So do you control the army? No. So, I mean, that's the key to all this. So in this case, you need the delusion that people can trade the thing called money for something later down the line. The faith, that's why it says, "In God we trust" on the back. They want you to associate God's reward system with you gathering this thing called money, for example, paper money. So,
Well, we
what
need
was the
money to pay
question?
bills and, put food on the table and all that stuff. Electricity.
Yeah, so I guess yes, technically in this society, because we rely on so many other people, yes. But if we didn't, if we were off the grid, no.
Yeah, that's it's a great point. I mean, a lot of the things that I talk about, and that's a whole nother discussion. It seems like common sense, but for the masses, it's not common practice. There's some people that think you really don't need any money at all, and that's why they don't focus on it, and they end up in a horrible position in life financially, which affects everything. So there is a there's a whole debate about that. But all right, so thank you. So what is finance necessary for everyone else? Finance, the science of finance, managing this money, managing wealth and stuff like that should everyone learn about how to manage their money?
Yeah, I think there's three levels, right? There's getting money, there's keeping it, and then there's growing it. So I wish I was more educated on the last two, the keeping it and growing it part. Um, but I think also is entrepreneurs out there, understand that if your offer's $2,000, try a finance offer where they can pay in 10 installment payments of what, 20 bucks or 200 bucks for 10 payments. That will open up a whole floodgate of more orders because people feel like it's chunked down. I didn't do that for a long time and I missed out on a lot of revenue because I didn't understand the concept of financing out even a purchase. So people can do that now with Stripe and all these different tools. Um, so even outside of investing, that's where I found it useful.
Yeah, that's a brilliant point. All right, so just a few more questions left here, and we're almost done. How important is having a purpose in business? Slash, what is your purpose?
Sure. Yeah. My purpose specifically, I was told this from a higher revelation, is show love, be filled with the spirit of truth, and complete your assignment. My assignment specifically is to give Bibles. And purpose is once I had that revelation, I came to this world like nothing matters except my purpose. Because I want to go to the place where I felt the source of joy literally pouring out of this place. And it was like the most happiest you've ever been times 1 billion. And I was like, I want to be there or wherever that is around that source. And so
So
yeah,
complete
it's
the
very
sentence.
important.
My purpose is what is that?
My purpose is to give Bibles specifically. That's my specific assignment, but everybody has a very different assignment. So they have to just ask the creator for it tonight.
Okay. But for purpose as applied to business, would you say if you have a business, you should definitely have a purpose behind that business in order to make it successful?
Yeah, I think I got lucky enough to where I had that revelation to where that is the driver. And it's even, and what's most important about it is that it's beyond my life. If I didn't have anything beyond my life, I would always be thinking about the finite and how I can do all this. But because it goes beyond my lifetime, that's what gives me this infinite fuel to always reach and feel like I have to be my best. Whenever I feel like I'm aligned with my purpose, I just get so happy. And I'm like, yes, I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And it feels right. And it just makes me feel great. So I think that's the purpose of purpose is to give you that fulfillment, to reassure you that you're on the right track so that you're reinforced to keep doing whatever it is you're doing. I think that's what it's for.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Carlin. Two questions left. What would you like to do in the next 10 years or so, and why? What would you like to
Yeah.
accomplish in the next 10 years or so, and why?
My affirmations are I'm happy and excited to be the leader of the audio community around the world. I'm happy and excited to have a loving marriage with a beautiful child, which we have now. I'm very happy for that. I'm happy and excited to have the world's best audio production company on the planet. And I'm happy and excited to have the world's best audio software company on the planet. And so that's where I'm headed, is trying to get into audio software. I'm learning Python coding, to move into C++, to move into this thing called Juice, it's called, and then to learn what's also called KSP, coding languages, so that I can create products from the ground up, or at least guide a team of developers and just reshape the way we're doing this whole music software thing. That's where I'm planning in the next 10 years. That's what I see, and I believe it because it's right there. I could see it. I just have to sit down and learn. Um, yeah, so that's for the next 10 years. Yeah, that's where I'll be at. Because the education stuff, it's already here. We already figured that out.
And it's hard to ask these questions. A lot of folks that were on here, they're at different cycles or phases in life. You still have so much potential. I mean, you've already accomplished a lot. But like this next question, um, this is the last question, by the way. What would you like to be your legacy to this world? And again, this answer could change in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years from now. So, but at the
Yeah,
moment, what would you like to see as your legacy to the world?
sure. Just known for giving Bibles. As simple as that sounds, that is my driving force. And if I help people get to their goals along the way and get acknowledged for that, then that also makes me happy. So just helping people get to their goals, and that morphs every single day. Sometimes it's in music, sometimes it's in business, sometimes it's in personal life. I just want to be a catalyst. I think I've identified as just a person who gets somebody to their desired outcome, and I help it go faster. So that's what I am to the core. It's just a catalyst. So my legacy is Carlin Hines was the greatest catalyst in my life. And he showed me there's actually good in humanity, and to just have faith in yourself so that you can create what's inside of you, and then you'll be even happier.
That is brilliant. Carlin, I want to thank you again, man. I'm honored to have you here. Even proud that you're a local Philadelphian area person as well too. So there's so many reasons to have brought you here. I mean, obviously, success with music and YouTube and social media, all that stuff, Clubhouse. But really, you're just a great guy. You can get a great heart, and I'm honored to have you here. So if you have any last words, anything else you'd like to share, the floor is yours. Thank you again, Carlin.
I just want to thank everybody for being so patient to this conversation. You guys are the reason the world moves forward. Everybody else gave up at 1 minute, and you guys are the exceptional ones. X-Men, should we call them? I don't know. The Avengers, I don't know. Shout out to you guys. Keep changing the world. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Carlin. Where can they find out more information about your website and social media sites as well?
Oh yeah, I encourage them to be private investigators. Google BusyWorks Beats, type in Carlin Hines, get all the stuff you could find. I try to be everywhere so that I'm not biased. So just Google BusyWorks Beats. There we go.
Yeah, he's omnipresent. He's literally everywhere. And if you type him in on YouTube, for example, you'll find his channel pops right at the top, almost about 1 million subscribers at the time of this podcast. So what's your website again though?
Just busyworksbeats.com, which I need to redesign. It's very figuring it out, y'all. Everybody's figured it out.
Well, you got me in your corner now. So
yeah, right on.
All right. Well, thank you, Carlin. Appreciate you being here. And folks, we're going to conclude now. This is Dr. Anthony Criney, fourth year, also known as Dr. Finance. You're watching a Dr. Finance Live podcast. If you want to find out more information about this show, just go to drfinance.info. Also, information about myself and all the other great things I'm doing. And if you want to see information about Carlin, again, check out busyworksbeats.com. If you're interested in learning more about finance, these are 3 books I wrote for my finance students starting over 10 years ago, actually, as a finance professor. The Necessity of Finance, I wrote it early 2013. Well, it was published early 2013 for my finance students. Then the Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance the next year. And then my major book, The Capitulation here, 2016, 500 plus page book called The Survival of the Richest, intersecting biology, economics, finance, survivalism, and saving the world at the same time. Could you imagine that? And finance. So thank you, folks. Appreciate you being here. Again, go to drfinance.info. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, comment as well. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you now.
Hey, peace.